My daughter's new husband forgot his cell phone in my house. It rang, and on the screen appeared a photo of my wife, who had died 5 years ago. When I opened the message, my heart almost stopped. Look, I'm going to level with you right off the bat. Retirement is a scam. They sell you this fantasy about golf courses, afternoon naps, and finally having time to read all those books collecting dust on your shelf. What they don't tell you is that retirement is actually just you, alone in a house that's too quiet, making coffee that tastes like disappointment, and wondering why the hell Netflix keeps asking if you're still watching. Yes, Netflix, I'm still watching. What else am I supposed to do? Take up knitting. It's Sunday morning, and I'm standing in my kitchen wearing sweatpants that have seen better decades, trying to brew a pot of coffee that doesn't taste like I filtered it through an old gym sock. The machine gurgles and hisses like it's personally offended by my existence, which honestly, fair enough. I've been taking out my general life frustrations on this poor appliance for the better part of 6 months now, ever since I realized that being retired doesn't make you feel free. It just makes you feel old and useless with more time to think about it. My daughter Claire is visiting with her shiny new husband, Mason. They've been married for 3 months, which in modern marriage years is basically still the honeymoon phase where they haven't discovered each other's truly annoying habits yet. Give it time, kids. Give it time. Mason is one of those guys who looks like he was assembled in a factory that specializes in producing successful young professional mannequins. Perfect hair that probably costs more to maintain than my mortgage. A smile so white it could guide ships to shore. And cologne. Jesus Christ, the cologne. The man wears so much of it that I'm pretty sure it's less about smelling good and more about chemical warfare. It's the kind of scent that screams, I drive a leased BMW and have opinions about cryptocurrency. Every time he walks into a room, my nose stages a small protest and my eyes water a little. Dad, you really should think about updating your kitchen, Claire says, eyeing my ancient coffee maker like it personally offended her interior design sensibilities. She's standing by my counter in some outfit that probably cost more than my first car, looking around my house like she's mentally redecorating it into something that would appear in one of those home magazines where everything is white and nobody actually lives there. What's wrong with my kitchen? I ask, even though I know exactly what's wrong with my kitchen. It's stuck in 1997, just like my music taste and my understanding of TikTok. Nothing. If you're running a museum dedicated to the Clinton administration, Mason chimes in, flashing that perfect smile. I want to like him, I really do, but there's something about a man who uses hair gel on a Sunday that makes me deeply suspicious of his character. They stay for exactly 47 minutes. I know because I checked my watch 3 times. And then they're off to brunch or yoga or whatever the hell young people do on Sunday mornings that makes them feel superior to us old folks who just want to drink coffee in peace and watch birds argue over the feeder in the backyard. Love you, Dad, Claire calls out, giving me a quick hug that smells like expensive perfume and youth. Drive safe, I yell back, which is the official dad translation for, I love you too, but I'm emotionally constipated. The door closes behind them, and I'm left standing in my kitchen, coffee in hand, ready to embrace the peaceful chaos of doing absolutely nothing for the rest of the day. I'm thinking maybe I'll watch that documentary about penguins or finally figure out what the hell a podcast is when I hear it. Buzzing. Not the good kind of buzzing, like bees making honey or whatever. The annoying, persistent, modern-day anxiety-inducing buzzing of a cell phone having a complete meltdown. I look around my kitchen like the buzzing might be coming from my refrigerator achieving sentience, and that's when I see it. Mason's phone, sitting on my counter like a glowing rectangle of forgotten responsibility. The screen is lit up like a Christmas tree, notifications piling up faster than my credit card bills. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I know I should just call Claire and tell her Mason left his phone. That would be the mature, respectful, boundary-respecting thing to do. But here's the thing about being 63 years old and retired with nothing but time on your hands. Curiosity doesn't just kill the cat. It also murders your sense of privacy and good judgment. I walk over to the counter, telling myself I'm just going to pick it up and set it somewhere safe. That's it. Just being a responsible adult. But the second my hand touches that phone, the screen lights up even brighter, and suddenly I'm staring at something that makes my brain short-circuit like my coffee maker on a bad day. My late wife's face is staring back at me. Laura, 5 years dead. still smiling in that photograph like she just figured out a new way to make me pay for that time I forgot our anniversary in 2003 and tried to cover it up by saying I was planning a surprise, when really I just forgot, because I'm an idiot. My hand freezes. My brain goes into full panic mode. The coffee cup in my other hand starts to shake, and I'm pretty sure I've stopped breathing, because that's definitely Laura's face on Mason's phone. And unless my son-in-law has developed some seriously disturbing hobbies involving my deceased wife's photos, something is very, very wrong here. Then a text message pops up, and I swear to God, my heart stops completely. The message reads, "Tuesday again, same time. Can't wait to hold you." The coffee cup slips. Coffee goes everywhere, splashing across my counter, dripping onto the floor, probably soaking into my sweatpants, but I don't even notice because I'm too busy staring at this phone like it just told me the meaning of life, and also that meaning is absolutely terrifying. My dead wife, texting my daughter's husband, making plans for Tuesday to hold him. I stand there in my kitchen, covered in coffee, holding my son-in-law's phone, staring at my deceased wife's smiling face, and I realize with the kind of clarity that only comes from absolute chaos that my peaceful Sunday morning has just gone completely off the rails. Either Mason has been sexting my dead wife, or someone is pretending to be her, and honestly, I'm not sure which option is worse. All I know is that retirement just got a hell of a lot more interesting, and I'm going to need more coffee. A lot more coffee. So here's the thing about human nature that nobody wants to admit. When someone tells you not to do something, especially when that someone is your own conscience, you're going to do it anyway. It's like when the doctor says, "Don't Google your symptoms," and then you immediately go home and convince yourself you have a rare tropical disease, even though you haven't left Ohio in 3 years. We're all idiots, basically, and I'm about to prove it spectacularly. I'm standing in my kitchen, still dripping coffee like some kind of caffeinated water fountain, holding Mason's phone like it's a live grenade, telling myself in my most authoritative internal voice, "Do not unlock this phone. Whatever's on here is none of your business. Put it down. Call Claire. Be a mature adult about this situation." You know what I do next? I unlock the phone. Obviously. In my defense, and I'm really reaching here, I need to know if my dead wife is somehow involved in whatever fresh hell is happening. And the only way to know that is to completely violate my son-in-law's privacy and probably several federal laws in the process. If this goes south, at least I'll have an interesting story to tell my cellmate. The phone asks for a passcode. I stare at the screen, watching it blink at me expectantly, and I'm about to give up because what are the odds I'm going to guess Mason's passcode on the first try? Then I remember something Claire mentioned during one of her rambling wedding planning sessions that I'm mostly tuned out while pretending to care about napkin colors. Mason wanted their wedding date to be on Claire's birthday because he thought it was romantic. I type in Claire's birthday. 6 digits. May 14th. The phone unlocks. Rookie mistake. Mason. I mutter to my empty kitchen, feeling simultaneously proud of my detective skills and deeply disturbed by how easy that was. This is the guy who works in cybersecurity or finance or whatever the hell he does that requires business trips and expensive suits. You'd think he'd have better password hygiene, but apparently not. The home screen loads, and I'm immediately assaulted by approximately 7,000 notifications. This man has more apps than I have functioning brain cells right now. There's Instagram, Twitter, something called Slack that sounds vaguely threatening, and at least 4 different email accounts. Who needs 4 email accounts? That's not organization, that's paranoia with extra steps. But I'm not here for Mason's questionable app collection. I'm here for answers about why my dead wife's face is appearing on his phone with flirty text messages. So I navigate to his messages with all the confidence of a man who has absolutely no idea what he's doing, but is committed to the bid anyway. I find a conversation. It's listed under the contact name L. Just the letter L. Not Laura, or mom's name that would be super creepy, or even a last name. Just L, which is either supposed to be discreet or Mason has the creativity of a brick. I tap on it, and the profile picture loads. There she is again. Laura, my wife, wearing that floral dress she absolutely hated. I remember that dress. She wore it exactly once to some charity function I dragged her to, and she complained the entire night about how it made her look like a couch from a retirement home. Her words, not mine. The fact that this is the picture someone chose is already weird because anyone who actually knew Laura would know she wouldn't be caught dead in that dress twice. Poor choice of words, considering. I start scrolling through the messages, and let me tell you, this is where things go from weird to, I'm definitely having a stroke, and this is all a hallucination territory. The text read like something out of a romance novel written by someone who's never actually experienced romance. I miss your laugh. You still smell like lilac. Can't wait to see you again, my darling. My darling. My darling. Laura never called anyone darling in her entire life. She called me jackass when I left my socks on the floor and idiot when I tried to assemble IKEA furniture without instructions. But darling? Never. Not once. Not even on our wedding day, when she was legally obligated to be nice to me. I keep scrolling, my thumb moving on autopilot while my brain tries to process what I'm seeing. Either Mason has developed a hobby in necromancy and figured out how to communicate with the dead via text message, which, honestly, if he could monetize that he'd make a fortune, or my late wife has been networking from the afterlife and has somehow figured out how to use a smartphone despite being, deceased. The messages go back months. Months. This isn't a recent thing or some weird glitch or a random coincidence. This is an ongoing conversation between my daughter's husband and someone pretending to be my dead wife, and I'm standing in my kitchen covered in coffee, trying not to have a complete mental breakdown. I scroll deeper, half expecting to see a Venmo request for ghostly rent or maybe a link to my wife's PayPal, because if we're going full paranormal here, might as well throw in some supernatural financial transactions. But instead, I find something that makes my blood run colder than the coffee currently soaking through my sweatpants. Photos. Not just one or two photos that could maybe be old pictures someone dug up from Facebook or whatever. I'm talking dozens of photos. Current photos. Photos that were definitely, absolutely, 100% taken after Laura died, because I was at her funeral and watched them lower a casket into the ground. And unless she pulled off the greatest magic trick in human history, she was definitely in that casket. I tap on the first photo, and my hands are shaking so badly I almost drop the phone. It's Laura, or someone who looks exactly like Laura, standing in front of a coffee shop I don't recognize. She's wearing clothes I've never seen before. Modern clothes. A jacket that's definitely from this decade, not from 5 years ago when she died. Her hair is styled differently, shorter than she used to wear it. She's smiling at the camera like she doesn't have a care in the world, like she isn't supposed to be 6 feet under in Greenwood Cemetery. The timestamp on the photo, 3 months ago. I swipe to the next photo. Laura, or Laura's doppelganger or Laura's ghost who somehow learned how to use Instagram filters, sitting at a restaurant. Different outfit. Different location. Timestamp, 6 weeks ago. Another swipe. Laura at a park. Laura in front of a bookstore. Laura standing next to a blue-painted fence that looks weirdly familiar, but I can't place it because my brain is currently experiencing the mental equivalent of a computer blue screen of death. Every photo is timestamped after her death. Every single one. And they're not grainy or blurry or the kind of photos you could explain away as manipulated or photoshopped. These are clear, high-quality photos of a woman who looks exactly like my wife, existing in the world, living her life, years after I buried her. I lean against my kitchen counter because my legs have decided they're done supporting my weight, and I'm pretty sure I'm either having a heart attack or the worst anxiety attack of my life, or possibly both simultaneously. My mind is racing through possibilities, each one more insane than the last. Option 1. Someone is catfishing Mason using my dead wife's identity, which raises the question of who has access to recent photos of a woman who's been dead for 5 years, and also why they're pretending to be her to seduce my idiot son-in-law. Option 2. Laura somehow faked her death, has been alive this whole time, and is now having an affair with our daughter's husband, which would make her both alive and the worst person in human history. Option 3. I'm currently having a psychotic break and none of this is real, and I should probably call someone professional to help me. Option 4. I'm in a Netflix true crime documentary, and this is the part where the creepy music starts playing and some narrator with a really serious voice says, and that's when everything changed. I stare at the phone, at my wife's face smiling back at me from beyond the grave, and I realize with absolute certainty that my peaceful retirement just became a full-blown investigation into either supernatural phenomena or the most messed up catfishing scheme in history. Either way, I'm going to need a lot more coffee and probably a lawyer. Maybe a priest too, just to cover all my bases. I don't sleep that night. Not a single minute. I just lie there in bed, staring at my ceiling like it might suddenly reveal the secrets of the universe. Or at the very least, explain why my dead wife is apparently texting my son-in-law about holding him on Tuesdays. The ceiling offers no answers, which is typical because nothing in my life has been straightforward since Laura died, or didn't die, or whatever the hell is happening here. By the time Monday morning rolls around, I look like something that crawled out of a discount horror movie. There are bags under my eyes that could qualify as luggage. My hair is doing this weird thing where it's simultaneously sticking up and falling flat. And I'm pretty sure I forgot to brush my teeth because my mouth tastes like I've been chewing on old gym socks. Retirement was supposed to make me look relaxed and rejuvenated. Instead, I look like the before picture in an antidepressant commercial. I've spent the entire night alternating between staring at Mason's phone and Googling things like, can dead people text? And how to tell if your wife faked her death, and signs you're losing your mind. The internet, as always, is spectacularly unhelpful and has only succeeded in convincing me that I'm either dealing with an elaborate hoax, a supernatural phenomenon, or a brain tumor. Possibly all three. Mason's phone is still sitting on my kitchen table, mocking me with its existence. I keep expecting him to call or text from another phone asking where it is, but apparently my son-in-law is so attached to his devices that without one, he just ceases to function as a human being. Either that or Claire hasn't let him come up for air long enough to realize he's missing a vital organ. I'm on my fourth cup of coffee, the kind that tastes slightly less like regret than yesterday's batch, when I hear a knock on my door. It's that specific kind of knock that only family members do, the one that's less, may I come in, and more, I'm already coming in. This is just a courtesy warning. Sure enough, Claire breezes through my front door like she owns the place. All sunshine and newlywed energy that makes me want to both hug her and tell her to tone it down because some of us are having existential crises over here. Morning, Dad, she chirps, holding 2 cups of what I assume is overpriced coffee from that place downtown where they charge you $8 for what's essentially hot bean water with delusions of grandeur. Brought you a latte. Mason told me you still drink that cheap stuff from the grocery store, and I thought you deserved better. There's so much I could say to that. I could point out that my cheap stuff has been getting me through the morning just fine for the past 40 years. I could mention that I have Mason's phone and the contents of said phone have fundamentally altered my understanding of reality. Instead, I take the latte because I'm not a complete idiot, and free coffee is free coffee, even if it does cost $8. Thanks, sweetheart, I say, trying to sound like a normal father and not like a man who spent the entire night spiraling into paranoid theories about his deceased wife's secret life. What brings you by? Can't a daughter just visit her dad? She asks. But she's already looking around my living room with that expression she gets when she's mentally cataloging all the things she thinks I should update or throw away or generally improve about my life. Also, Mason left his phone here yesterday. He's been freaking out about it. You know how he gets without his technology. Oh, I know exactly how Mason gets. What I don't know is how Mason gets when his father-in-law confronts him about potentially having an affair with a dead woman. But I guess we're all about to find out. Yeah, about that. I start, setting down my fancy latte and trying to figure out how to phrase, your husband might be sexting my deceased wife, in a way that doesn't make me sound completely insane. I found his phone and, oh thank God, Claire interrupts, already heading toward my kitchen where the phone is still sitting like a ticking time bomb of family drama. He's been driving me crazy. You'd think he lost a limb the way he was carrying on about it. She picks up the phone, and I watch her like I'm observing a bomb disposal expert who doesn't know the bomb is about to explode. She glances at the screen, sees all the notifications, and just shakes her head with this fond, exasperated smile that makes my heart hurt because she has no idea what's on that phone. I swear, he's probably got 100 work emails by now, she says, tucking the phone into her purse. Sometimes I think he's married to his phone more than he's married to me. This is my opening. This is where I should tell her everything. Show her the messages, the photos, the evidence that her husband of 3 months is either involved in the world's most disturbing catfishing scheme or is somehow in contact with my dead wife. But when I look at her face, so happy, so blissfully unaware, I can't do it. Not yet. Not until I know more. Claire, I say carefully. How well do you actually know Mason? She laughs. Actually laughs. Like this is the most ridiculous question I've ever asked. Dad, I married him. I think I know him pretty well. But before you met him, I mean. His past relationships, his. Dad. She cuts me off with that tone that all daughters master by age 16. The one that means, I love you, but you're being ridiculous and I need you to stop. I know you worry. I know you think nobody's good enough for me, which is sweet, but also a little overprotective. But Mason is great. He's successful. He treats me well. He's just a little forgetful sometimes. Like with his phone. Right. Forgetful. About his phone. That he uses too. I stop myself before I say something I can't take back. To what? Claire asks, her eyebrows raised in that way that means I'm about 3 seconds away from getting a lecture about letting go and moving on and not being so paranoid about every guy she dates. Even though she's literally married to this one, so my paranoia seems pretty justified at this point. Nothing, I say, because I'm a coward and also because I need more information before I blow up my daughter's marriage over something I might be completely wrong about. Even though every instinct in my body is screaming that I'm absolutely right about this. Just, Mom's gone, kiddo. You know that, right? The second the words leave my mouth, I regret them. Claire's expression shifts from amused to concerned, and she sets down her coffee to come over and put her hand on my shoulder like I'm some fragile old man who can't handle his grief. Dad, of course I know that. We all miss her, but you can't live in the past forever. Mom wouldn't want that. She squeezes my shoulder. She'd want you to let it go, to move on, to maybe even think about dating again. Not that I'm pushing, but Mrs. Henderson from your book club keeps asking about you. And, Claire, I'm fine. I interrupt. Because if we start talking about Mrs. Henderson and her aggressive casserole delivery schedule, I'm going to lose my mind. Really, I'm fine. Just tired. Didn't sleep well. She studies my face for a moment. And I can see her doing that thing she does where she tries to decide if I'm actually fine or just saying I'm fine because I'm a stubborn old man who doesn't know how to ask for help. Eventually, she seems to accept my answer, or at least decide that arguing with me isn't worth the energy. Okay, she says slowly. But if you need to talk, or if you're feeling lonely, you know you can call me, right? Anytime. I know, sweetheart. Thank you. She gives me a hug, grabs Mason's phone from her purse one more time to check if he's called her, then heads for the door. Love you, Dad. Try to get some sleep tonight, okay? You look awful. Love you too, kid. And thanks for that confidence boost. She leaves, and I'm alone again with my thoughts and my theories and the growing certainty that I'm about to uncover something that's going to make everyone in my family wish I'd just stayed retired and minded my own business. I sit down at my laptop. The one my grandson set up for me last Christmas and taught me how to use with the patience of a saint, and I pull up YouTube. If there's one thing retirement has taught me, it's that YouTube has a tutorial for literally everything, including, apparently, how to extract data from someone else's phone, which is definitely illegal, but probably justified under the circumstances. 3 hours and several easy step-by-step videos later, none of which were actually easy and all of which assumed I had more technical knowledge than I actually possess. I managed to connect Mason's phone to my laptop. I'm pretty sure I violated at least 4 different terms of service agreements and possibly a federal law or 2. But at this point, I'm committed to finding out the truth even if it means spending my golden years in prison. The photos download, and I start going through them one by one, looking for anything that might explain what the hell is going on. Most of them are boring. Mason's lunch, Mason's car, Mason taking selfies with Claire that make me want to throw my laptop out the window because nobody needs to see that many filtered photos of themselves. But then I find it. One small detail buried in a photo of Laura standing in front of some trees, smiling at the camera like she doesn't have a care in the world. Behind her, barely visible in the background, is a fence. A blue-painted fence. That exact specific shade of blue that I would recognize anywhere because I painted it myself 20 years ago during a weekend when Laura decided our lake cabin needed more personality. The cabin, Laura's favorite place in the world. The place where we spent summers and anniversaries and quiet weekends when we needed to escape from the chaos of regular life. The place I sold 6 months after her funeral because I couldn't stand going there without her, couldn't stand seeing her favorite chair empty or walking past her gardening tools, or remembering all the memories we made there. I sold it to some couple from out of state. Signed the papers. Watched them drive away with the keys. Said goodbye to that chapter of my life. So why is someone who looks exactly like my dead wife taking photos there? And who the hell is living in my old cabin? I sit back in my chair, and my stomach growls because apparently I forgot to eat anything today except coffee and more coffee. I should probably have some of that leftover lasagna in the fridge, the one Claire made last week that's sitting in there like a ticking time bomb of dairy-based indigestion. But food can wait. Sleep can wait. Everything can wait because I just found my first real lead, and I'll be damned if I'm going to let this go now. My wife's favorite cabin. The blue fence I painted. Photos time-stamped after her death. Someone's using that cabin. Someone who looks exactly like Laura. And I'm going to find out who, even if it kills me, or gives me heartburn. At this point, both seem equally likely. I've made a lot of questionable decisions in my 63 years on this planet. There was that time I bought a timeshare in Florida that turned out to be a swamp with delusions of grandeur. The year I tried to cut my own hair to save money and ended up looking like I'd lost a fight with a lawnmower. That incident with the home brewery kit that nearly blew up my garage. But calling Frank DeLuca at 7 in the morning to recruit him for amateur detective work might actually top the list. Frank answers on the fourth ring, sounding like he gargled with gravel and chased it with sandpaper. This better be good. I was having a dream about fishing and I actually caught something, which never happens in real life. So you just ruined my only source of accomplishment. I need your help, I say, pacing around my kitchen like a caged animal who's had way too much coffee. Something's going on with Mason, and I think my wife might be involved. There's a long pause on the other end of the line. Long enough that I check to make sure the call didn't drop. Finally, Frank speaks, his voice cautious like he's talking to someone who might be having a mental breakdown. Buddy, Laura's been gone for 5 years. I know that, Frank. I was at the funeral. I gave the eulogy. I'm aware of the situation. Then what are you talking about? So I explain everything. The phone, the messages, the photos, the blue fence at the cabin. I lay it all out while Frank listens without interrupting, which is unusual because Frank normally interrupts everything, including movies, church sermons, and his own sentences. When I finish, there's another long silence. Then, so either someone's catfishing your son-in-law using your dead wife's identity, or Laura faked her death and is shacking up with Mason, or you've completely lost your mind and I need to drive you to the hospital. Those are our 3 options here. I'm not crazy, Frank. That's exactly what crazy people say. I should know. I arrested plenty of them. Frank retired from the police force 3 years ago after 30 years of service, which he now spends complaining about how the force has gone downhill and watching crime documentaries so he can yell at the TV about all the mistakes the detectives are making. But okay, let's say you're not crazy. What do you want me to do about it? I want to stake out Mason. See where he goes on Tuesdays. Follow him to the cabin if that's where he's going. I pause, then add, I need backup. Someone who knows what they're doing. I spent 30 years busting drug dealers and breaking up bar fights, Frank says dryly. The most cybercrime I ever investigated was some teenager stealing his neighbor's Wi-Fi password. But sure, I'll help you spy on your son-in-law. Not like I had anything better to do. My wife's been trying to get me to paint the garage for 6 months anyway, so this gives me a legitimate excuse to avoid it. We agree to meet at my house on Tuesday morning. That gives me a full day to prepare, which I spend doing absolutely nothing productive except Googling how to tail someone without being noticed and watching YouTube videos about surveillance techniques. Most of them seem to assume I have access to professional equipment and unlimited funds. I have neither. What I do have is a pair of binoculars I bought in 1987 for birdwatching and never used, a car that makes suspicious noises when it goes over 40 miles per hour, and determination bordering on obsession. Tuesday morning arrives with all the enthusiasm of a root canal. Frank shows up at my door wearing what I can only describe as a disguise that looks like it came from a Halloween store's clearance bin. He's got on a baseball cap, sunglasses that are about 3 sizes too big for his face, and, I kid you not, a fake mustache. What the hell are you wearing? I ask, staring at him like he just announced he's joining the circus. It's a disguise, Frank says, adjusting the mustache, which immediately starts peeling off on one side. We're doing surveillance. We need to blend in. Look inconspicuous. Frank, you look like a pedophile at a playground. Nobody's going to believe that's real. It cost me $12 at the pharmacy. It's plenty real. He tries to press the mustache back onto his upper lip, but it's fighting a losing battle against gravity and poor adhesive. Besides, you want to talk. You're wearing a shirt that says, "World's Best Grandpa," and you don't even have grandkids. Claire gave me this shirt. I'm being supportive of her future plans. You look like you're about to attend a barbecue, not conduct surveillance on your son-in-law. We bicker about our respective fashion choices for another 5 minutes before I remind Frank that we're supposed to be professionals here, which makes us both laugh because we're about as professional as a couple of raccoons trying to operate heavy machinery. The plan, and I use that term loosely, is to follow Mason from his office to wherever he goes on Tuesday afternoons. According to Claire, he leaves work early every Tuesday for client meetings, which is apparently code for visiting someone who looks like your dead mother-in-law at a cabin. But we need proof. We need to see it with our own eyes because right now, all I have is circumstantial evidence and a growing certainty that I'm either solving a mystery or having a spectacular mental breakdown. We stake out Mason's office building, which is one of those modern glass structures downtown that looks like a PlayStation 4 standing on its end. Frank and I are parked across the street in my car, which is making concerning rattling noises that suggest it might be planning its own retirement soon. There, Frank says, pointing. His mustache has fallen off completely now and is sitting on the dashboard like a dead caterpillar. That's him, right? Sure enough, Mason emerges from the building at exactly 2:30, looking like he just walked off the set of a cologne commercial. He's checking his phone, presumably the one I violated extensively, and heading toward his car with the kind of purposeful stride that suggests he's got somewhere to be and someone to meet. Follow him, Frank says, like we're in some kind of cop drama, and he's the grizzled veteran teaching the rookie the ropes. I know how to follow someone, Frank. I'm not an idiot. You called me at 7 in the morning to help you spy on your daughter's husband. I'm questioning a lot of your life choices right now. Fair point. I start my car, which responds by making a noise like a dying walrus, and pull out into traffic about 3 cars behind Mason. Frank has somehow produced a pair of binoculars from his jacket, different from mine, significantly newer, probably actually functional, and is peering through them like we're on some kind of safari. Not so close, Frank hisses. You're going to spook him. I'm literally 4 cars behind him. He can't even see us. That's what you think. I've been made plenty of times during surveillance because some rookie got too close. Stay back. Be patient. We follow Mason through downtown, onto the highway, and then, just as I suspected, toward the county roads that lead to the Lake District where my old cabin is. My heart starts pounding harder than it has any right to at my age. This is it. This is confirmation. Mason is heading exactly where I thought he was heading. He's going to the cabin. I say, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turn white. Or he's going fishing, Frank offers, but even he doesn't sound convinced. Could be a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Not after finding those photos. We follow Mason for another 20 minutes, hanging back far enough that he won't notice us, but close enough that we don't lose him. Frank keeps providing unnecessary commentary about proper surveillance techniques, most of which I ignore because he's been retired long enough that he's probably forgotten half of what he learned anyway. Finally, Mason turns onto a dirt road. The same dirt road that leads to my old cabin. The same dirt road I drove down 1,000 times with Laura in the passenger seat, arguing about directions or what to have for dinner or whether we needed to stop for groceries. That's the road, I say quietly. That's the road to the cabin. Frank lowers his binoculars and looks at me. For once, he's not making jokes or complaining about his wife or his garage or anything else. He just looks serious, concerned, maybe even a little worried about what we're going to find. You sure you want to do this? He asks. Because once we go down there, once we see whatever's happening, you can't unsee it. You can't unknow it. I think about Claire, about her happiness, her marriage, her future. I think about Laura and the life we had and the funeral I attended and the grief I've been carrying for 5 years. I think about Mason and his stupid perfect hair and his cologne and his locked phone with messages from someone who's supposed to be dead. I'm sure, I say, and I turn onto the dirt road. We park about a quarter-mile away from the cabin, hidden behind some trees that have grown taller since I last saw them. Frank grabs his binoculars. His mustache is now completely lost somewhere in my car, probably under the seat with old receipts and regret, and we make our way through the woods like a couple of geriatric commandos on our worst mission yet. And that's when we see it. Mason's car parked outside the cabin. Mason himself, standing by the door, holding a bouquet of flowers that probably cost more than my monthly electric bill. The door opens, and out walks Laura, or someone who looks exactly like her. Same height, same build, same way of moving that I'd recognize anywhere because I spent 38 years watching her move through the world. Holy shit, Frank whispers. Yeah, holy shit indeed. I've seen a lot of weird things in my life. I once watched a man at the grocery store argue with a cantaloupe for 10 minutes. I've witnessed my neighbor try to mow his lawn during a thunderstorm because he didn't want to fall behind on his schedule. I've even seen Frank try to assemble IKEA furniture sober, which resulted in something that looked less like a bookshelf and more like a modern art installation about human suffering. But watching my dead wife walk out of a cabin to greet my son-in-law with a hug that lasts way too long, that takes the cake, eats the cake, and then asks for seconds. Tell me you're seeing this too. I whisper to Frank, because at this point I'm about 50-50 on whether I'm actually witnessing this or having some kind of stress-induced hallucination brought on by too much coffee and not enough sleep. I'm seeing it, Frank confirms, his binoculars pressed so hard against his face that he's probably going to have circular marks around his eyes for the next week. And I gotta tell you, buddy, that's either your wife's twin, or the best damn makeup job I've ever seen. Through the binoculars, the ones I finally wrestled away from Frank because they're significantly better than my 1987 birdwatching special, I watch this woman who looks disturbingly like Laura laugh at something Mason says. It's her laugh. The same one I heard for 38 years. The same one that used to echo through our house when she found something genuinely funny, which wasn't often because Laura had high standards for comedy and I had dad jokes. She's wearing jeans and a blue sweater. Her hair shorter than Laura used to wear it, but styled in a way that's definitely intentional and probably cost money at an actual salon. She touches Mason's arm while she talks, casual and familiar, like they've done this before. Multiple times. Every Tuesday, apparently. We need to get closer, I say, already moving before Frank can protest. Bad idea, Frank hisses, grabbing my arm. Very bad idea. We should observe from a distance, gather intel, maybe take some photos for evidence. Frank, that's either my wife who faked her death or someone impersonating my wife to seduce my daughter's husband. Either way, I'm not just going to crouch in the bushes like some kind of perverted woodland creature. I'm going up there. At least let me do it, Frank argues, his voice taking on that reasonable tone he probably used when trying to talk drunk people out of bad decisions. You're too emotionally involved. You'll blow our cover. I'll go up, pretend I'm lost, ask for directions. You're not pretending to be lost without your mustache. You look too conspicuous now. I look distinguished. You look like someone's uncle who brings conspiracy theories to Thanksgiving dinner. We're still bickering in urgent whispers when Mason and the Laura lookalike disappear into the cabin, closing the door behind them. The windows are covered with curtains I don't recognize, which means whoever's living here has redecorated since I sold the place. Frank and I crouch behind a tree that's definitely not wide enough to hide both of us, which means we're basically just two old guys in the woods pretending we're invisible. If anyone looks out the window right now, we're screwed. What now? Frank asks. Now we wait. See how long he stays. See if we can get a better look at her when they come back out. And if they don't come back out for hours? You planning to camp out here? Because I didn't bring snacks and my knees are already starting to hate me. He's got a point. My knees aren't exactly thrilled with this situation either. Crouching in the woods at 63 is significantly less comfortable than it would have been at 23 or even 43. Everything hurts. My back is already starting to protest, and I'm pretty sure something just crawled over my shoe. 20 minutes pass. My legs are cramping. Frank has eaten an entire pack of mints he found in his pocket and is now complaining about how they're making him thirsty. I'm starting to think this whole plan was a terrible idea when the cabin door finally opens. Mason emerges first, looking relaxed and happy in a way that makes me want to punch him in his perfect face. Then she appears, and in the better light, I can see her more clearly. Holy mother of, Frank starts. Don't say it. I cut him off. But he's right. Up close. Well, as close as we can get while hiding behind inadequate foliage. This woman isn't just similar to Laura. She is Laura. We're close enough that I can't tell the difference. Same nose, same mouth, same way of holding her shoulders slightly back, like she's perpetually ready to argue with someone. She hands Mason something. Looks like a folder or envelope, and says something that makes him laugh. He kisses her on the cheek. On the cheek. My son-in-law just kissed someone who looks exactly like my dead wife on the cheek, and I'm crouched in the woods with Frank witnessing what might be the most bizarre family drama in human history. Then she speaks. Her voice carries across the clearing, and my heart stops completely. See you next week, darling. Same time. Darling. She called him darling, just like in the texts. Frank looks at me, his expression somewhere between shocked and impressed. Well, he says quietly, at least we know she's real. That's something. That's not Laura. I say, but I'm not even convincing myself. Can't be Laura. Laura's dead. We buried her. Did we? Frank asks. Because that woman right there looks pretty alive to me. I give Mason exactly 24 hours to come clean on his own, which he doesn't, because apparently honesty is a concept he's only vaguely familiar with, like flossing or reading terms and conditions before clicking I agree. Wednesday afternoon, I invite him over under the pretense of needing help with my computer issues, which is only partially a lie because I do have computer issues, mainly that I used it to violate his privacy and possibly several federal laws. He shows up wearing khakis and a polo shirt like he's about to sell me insurance, carrying his laptop because he thinks I actually need tech support. The irony would be hilarious if I wasn't so angry I could spit nails. Thanks for coming, Mason, I say, gesturing for him to sit at my kitchen table. Can I get you some coffee? Sure, Mr. Brennan. Thanks. He's using that voice people use when they think they're talking to someone who's technologically incompetent and possibly senile. So what's the problem with your computer? Oh, the computer's fine, I say, setting down a cup of coffee in front of him. It's working great, actually. Helped me discover all sorts of interesting things. Like, for instance, photos from your phone. The color drains from Mason's face faster than water down a broken garbage disposal. His hand freezes halfway to the coffee cup, and I swear I can actually see the moment his brain short-circuits trying to figure out how to spin this. What? I don't. My phone was here, but I didn't give you permission to. Permission? I laugh, and it comes out harsh enough that Mason flinches. You're sleeping with someone who looks exactly like my dead wife, and you want to talk about permission? That's rich, kid. That's really rich. Sir, I think you're confused. Grief can make you see things, make you imagine. Buddy, I interrupt, leaning forward on the table. I've seen tax forms scarier than you. Don't try to gaslight me. I'm old, not stupid. There's a difference. Mason's practically vibrating with anxiety now, his leg bouncing under the table like he's trying to tap out Morse code for help me. Sweat is forming on his forehead, and I'm pretty sure if I had any houseplants, he could water them just by standing near them. Mr. Brennan, I can explain. Then explain. Because right now, the way I see it, you've been having an affair with someone who's either impersonating my deceased wife or my deceased wife, and I can't decide which option makes me want to strangle you more. He takes a shaky breath, and I can see him cycling through his options. Deny everything, run away, fake a heart attack. Instead, he does something I don't expect. He deflates completely, shoulders slumping like someone let all the air out of his ego. Her name is Lucy, he says quietly, staring at his untouched coffee. I met her at a grief support group 6 months ago. She introduced herself as Laura, said she'd been on a spiritual retreat after faking her death to escape some dangerous situation. I know how it sounds, but she knew things. Personal things about your family. About you. A spiritual retreat. I can feel my blood pressure rising to levels that would concern my doctor. A spiritual retreat. And you bought that? You didn't think to maybe fact-check this information? Google her? Ask literally anyone. I thought fact-checking was more of a journalist thing. Mason mumbles, and I have to grip the edge of the table to keep from throwing my coffee at him. It's a human thing, Mason. It's called using your brain. It's called not being a complete. I stop myself, take a breath, count to 5 because 10 seems excessive. Did you ever think about what this would do to Claire? To our family? Did you think at all? Or were you too busy being seduced by a woman claiming to be your mother-in-law? She's not. We weren't. It wasn't like that. Mason's face is bright red now, and he's talking too fast, words tumbling over each other. She said she needed help, that she couldn't reveal herself yet, that there were people looking for her. She asked me to keep it secret just until she could figure things out. I was trying to help. Help? I stand up because sitting is no longer containing my rage. You were helping by sneaking around with her every Tuesday? By kissing her outside a cabin? By calling her darling in text messages? I was just being friendly. If stupidity were a crime, Mason, you'd get life without parole. No chance of parole. They'd throw away the key and use your case as a warning to others. Mason looks like he might actually cry, which would normally make me feel bad, except I'm too busy being furious and confused and trying to figure out who the hell Lucy is and why she's pretending to be my dead wife. I'm sorry, he whispers. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah, well, the road to hell is paved with idiots who thought they were doing the right thing. I sit back down, suddenly exhausted. We're going to fix this. Together. And then you're going to tell Claire everything. Because I'm not keeping this secret for you. She'll leave me. Probably. But that's what happens when you make catastrophically stupid decisions. Mason is still sitting at my kitchen table looking like a kicked puppy who just realized he ate homework that wasn't his to eat. And I'm pacing back and forth trying to decide if I should call Claire right now or wait until I have more information. Part of me wants to protect my daughter from the truth for as long as possible, and the other part of me, the angry, vindictive part, wants to call her immediately just to watch Mason squirm. I'm about to make this decision when there's a knock at my door. Not Claire's knock. Not Frank's knock. This one is measured, calm, almost polite. The kind of knock that suggests the person on the other side is either very civilized or very dangerous. And honestly, at this point in my week, it could go either way. Mason's head snaps up, his eyes going wide with panic. That might be. Don't answer it. Please don't answer it. Oh, I'm absolutely answering it. I say, already heading for the door. At this point, I don't care if it's the FBI, the IRS, or Girl Scouts selling cookies. Actually, I hope it's Girl Scouts. I could use some thin mints to get through this nightmare. I open the door, and there she is. Laura. Or Lucy. Or whoever the hell this woman is who's been pretending to be my deceased wife and turning my retirement into a psychological thriller I never asked to be part of. She's standing on my porch holding a basket of muffins like she's some kind of suburban Martha Stewart who definitely hasn't been catfishing my son-in-law and impersonating dead people. The muffins smell like blueberries and fresh-baked lies. Hello, Richard, she says, and her voice is Laura's voice, but not quite. Like someone doing a really good impression, but missing some essential quality I can't quite name. I think we need to talk. I stare at her, then at the muffins, then back at her. My brain is doing that thing where it tries to process too much information at once and just sort of gives up and starts playing elevator music instead. Murderers don't bake, right? I finally say, which is possibly the stupidest thing I've ever said, and I once told a cop that I couldn't have been speeding because my car wasn't capable of going that fast, which was both a lie and an insult to my own vehicle. She smiles, Laura's smile, but different, and walks past me into my house without invitation, which is either incredibly rude or incredibly brave considering I'm still debating whether to call the police, a priest, or a psychiatric hospital. Mason has gone completely white. Like printer paper white. The kind of white that suggests his soul has left his body and is probably halfway to Mexico by now, leaving just an empty shell of a man who made terrible life choices. Lucy, he croaks. What are you doing here? Cleaning up your mess, apparently, Lucy says, setting the muffins down on my kitchen counter with the kind of confidence that suggests she's done this before. Done what? Exactly, I'm not sure. Brought baked goods to people she's been deceiving? Showed up uninvited to explain complicated fraud schemes? Richard, I know you have questions. Questions? I laugh, and it comes out slightly unhinged. Lady, I have more than questions. I have concerns. I have theories. I have a desperate need to understand why you look exactly like my dead wife and have been playing house with my daughter's husband at my old lake cabin. Start talking, and it better be good, because I'm about 2 seconds away from calling every law enforcement agency I can think of. She sits down at my kitchen table like we're about to have a casual chat about the weather, not a confrontation about identity theft and possible fraud. Mason looks like he wants to melt into the floor. I remain standing because sitting would imply I'm comfortable with this situation, and I am absolutely not comfortable. My name is Lucy Brennan, she begins, and that last name hits me like a slap. I'm Laura's twin sister. Identical twin. And before you say you didn't know Laura had a twin, That's because we were separated as children and placed in different families through a very complicated situation involving witness protection. I open my mouth. Close it. Open it again. I must look like a fish that's having an existential crisis. Witness protection. Twin sister. You expect me to believe. I don't expect you to believe anything. Lucy interrupts calmly. I'm just telling you the truth. Laura and I were switched at various points in our lives as part of a protection program involving our biological father's testimony against a fraud ring. Your late business partner, Harold Mitchell, was part of that ring. Harold. The name lands like a brick through a window. Harold Mitchell, my business partner for 15 years until he died in a car accident 3 years ago. Harold, who always seemed to have money problems despite our business doing well. Harold, who Laura never liked and never trusted. You're telling me Harold was involved in fraud? I sit down now because my legs have decided they're done supporting my weight during this conversation. And that somehow involves you pretending to be Laura? I wasn't pretending to be Laura, Lucy says. I was trying to expose the people Harold was working with. They're still operating, still running scams, and they've been targeting families connected to the original case, including yours. I needed access to information, connections, anything that could help me build a case against them. So you seduced my son-in-law. I gesture at Mason, who looks like he wishes he could disappear into another dimension. That was your brilliant plan. I didn't seduce anyone, Lucy says sharply. Mason approached me at a grief support group. I saw an opportunity to get close to your family without revealing who I really was. I told him I was Laura, back from hiding, and he believed me because she glances at Mason with something that might be pity or might be contempt. He's not very good at critical thinking. Hey, Mason protests weakly, but nobody pays attention to him. This is insane, I say, rubbing my temples where a headache is forming that's going to require prescription medication and possibly a vacation. This sounds like a plot from a daytime TV show. A bad daytime TV show. The kind that gets canceled after one season. I know how it sounds, Lucy says. But it's the truth. I have documentation. Proof. Everything you need to verify what I'm saying. I was going to come to you eventually, but I needed more time to gather evidence. And then Mason complicated things by being an idiot. I suggest. I was going to say emotionally vulnerable and easily manipulated. But yes, essentially an idiot. The front door bursts open. I really need to start locking that thing. And Frank barges in, slightly out of breath, holding something in his hand that takes me a moment to recognize as his fake mustache from yesterday's surveillance adventure. I knew it. Frank announces triumphantly, waving the mustache like a trophy. I told you she was trouble. I could sense it. 30 years on the force, you develop instincts about these things. Frank, you thought she was a ghost. A troublesome ghost. I was partially right. He notices Lucy sitting at my table and points at her dramatically. You? I saw you at the cabin. You're the Laura imposter. I'm not an imposter, Lucy says with impressive patience. I'm Laura's identical twin sister, and I'm trying to expose a fraud ring. Frank blinks. Processes. Blinks again. Well, that's new information. You think. I mutter. Mason, who has been silent for the past several minutes, suddenly makes a small whimpering sound. We all turn to look at him just in time to see his eyes roll back in his head. He doesn't faint metaphorically or dramatically. He just goes down like a sack of potatoes, sliding off his chair and hitting my kitchen floor with a thud that makes me wince, because that's definitely going to bruise. Oh, for crying out loud. I sigh, staring at my unconscious son-in-law sprawled on my linoleum. Frank, get some water. Lucy, I don't suppose those muffins have any magical properties that make complicated family situations less complicated? They're just blueberries, Lucy says apologetically. Figures, I say. Nothing in my life can be simple. Not even the baked goods. Frank returns with water, and we manage to revive Mason, who comes to looking confused and embarrassed, which is probably how he should look given the circumstances. He sits on my floor, leaning against the cabinet, holding a wet dishcloth to his forehead while the three of us, me, Frank, and the woman who may or may not be my dead wife's twin sister, stand around trying to figure out what the hell happens next. So, Frank says, breaking the awkward silence. Anyone want a muffin? Because they actually smell pretty good, and I skipped breakfast. I look at Lucy, at Frank, at Mason on my floor, at the basket of muffins that started this whole conversation. Sure, I say because at this point, why not? Let's have muffins while we discuss fraud rings and witness protection and whatever other insanity is about to get revealed. This is my life now. This is what retirement looks like. Lucy reaches for the basket, and I notice her hands are shaking slightly. For the first time since she walked through my door, she looks uncertain. Human. Less like a con artist, and more like someone who's in over her head in a situation that got away from them. For what it's worth, she says quietly, handing me a muffin, Laura really loved you. She talked about you all the time. That's how I knew so much. How I could pretend. She was my sister, and I miss her too. And just like that, my anger deflates a little. Not completely. I'm still furious about the deception, about Mason, about all of it. But underneath the anger, there's grief. Old grief, meeting new complications, and somewhere in all of this mess, the memory of a woman I loved who apparently had a whole secret twin sister I never knew about. The muffins better be good. I say, because I don't know what else to say. They are. They're actually pretty damn good. Which somehow makes everything worse. We're halfway through the muffins, which are criminally delicious for being brought by someone who's been living a lie. When Lucy drops the next bomb in what's becoming a Michael Bay film of revelations. There's something else you need to know, she says, picking at her muffin like she's trying to disarm it. About Laura. About the funeral. I freeze with a piece of muffin halfway to my mouth. What about the funeral? Lucy takes a deep breath, the kind people take before they say something that's going to fundamentally alter someone's understanding of reality. I've seen that breath before. It's the same one the doctor took before telling me Laura had stage 4 cancer. The same one the funeral director took when going over casket options. Nothing good ever follows that breath. Laura wasn't dead when you buried her, Lucy says. Or rather, you didn't bury Laura. You buried someone else. The muffin falls from my hand. Just drops straight onto my kitchen table, crumbling into pieces that seem weirdly symbolic of my mental state right now. Frank stops mid-chew, his mouth hanging open in a way that would be comical if this wasn't the most insane thing I've ever heard. Excuse me. I manage to say, though my voice sounds like it's coming from very far away, possibly from another dimension where things make sense. A body double? You're telling me I attended a funeral for a body double? It was the only way to protect her, Lucy says quickly, her words tumbling out like she's been holding them back for 5 years, and they're finally breaking free. The money laundering network Harold was involved with. They were closing in on Laura. She knew too much, had seen too much. Harold tried to keep her out of it, but once you're in that world, there's no clean exit. They threatened her. Threatened you. Threatened Claire. I blink so hard I'm pretty sure I nearly sprain an eyelid. My vision goes blurry for a second, and I have to grip the edge of the table to keep myself grounded in reality, which is apparently more flexible than I previously understood. So let me get this straight. I say slowly, like I'm explaining something to a child except the child is me, and I'm trying to understand my own life. My business partner Harold was running a money laundering scheme. Laura found out. Bad people wanted her dead. So she faked her death, using a body double, and let us, believe she was gone for 5 years. She didn't want to, Lucy insists. She was protecting you. If they knew she was alive, they would have come after you to get to her. The only way to keep everyone safe was to make her disappear completely. And where exactly has she been disappearing to? Frank asks, finally swallowing his muffin. Because I'm assuming she hasn't been living at the cabin this whole time, or Richard would have noticed when he sold it. She's been in protective custody. Different locations, different identities. The fraud ring is bigger than you know. It's not just money laundering. It's identity theft, insurance fraud, offshore accounts. Harold was small-time compared to the people running it. When he died in a car accident, I interrupt. Very convenient car accident. Are you telling me that wasn't actually an accident? Lucy's silence is answer enough. Jesus Christ, I breathe. They killed him. They killed him because he was getting sloppy, making mistakes, drawing attention. And Laura knew all of this. She'd seen documents, overheard conversations. She was the loose end they needed to tie up. Mason, still sitting on my floor like a confused toddler, finally speaks up. So when you said you were Laura coming back from a spiritual retreat, that was a cover story to explain why I looked exactly like a dead woman. Lucy finishes. I needed access to Richard's old files, his business records, anything that could help build a case against the people who are still operating. The FBI has been working on this for years, but they need concrete evidence. Evidence that might still be in this house. In my house. I look around my kitchen like secret documents are going to spontaneously materialize from behind my coffee maker. Lady, I cleaned out all of Harold's stuff years ago. Threw most of it away. If there was evidence, it's long gone. Not the physical files, Lucy says. The digital ones. Harold backed everything up to a shared cloud server. He gave Laura the login information years ago, probably as insurance in case his partners turned on him. She never told you because she didn't want to drag you into it. But now we need it. The FBI needs it. So, to summarize what I've learned in the past 15 minutes, my wife is alive. My business partner was murdered by the mob or something equally terrifying. My son-in-law is an idiot of legendary proportions, and my emotional stability is somewhere between midlife crisis and soap opera finale with a twist ending nobody asked for. Where is she? I ask, and my voice cracks on the question. Where's Laura? Is she safe? Can I see her? Lucy's expression softens, and for the first time since she walked through my door, I see genuine emotion in her eyes. Sympathy. Maybe even sadness. She wants to see you. Desperately. But we have to be careful. If the wrong people find out she's alive, if they track her location, I don't care about the wrong people. I'm standing now, my chair scraping back so hard it nearly falls over. My wife has been alive for 5 years and nobody told me. I mourned her. I gave away her clothes. I sold our cabin because I couldn't stand being there without her. And you're telling me it was all what? Theater? A protection program? Well, congratulations. You protected me right into 5 years of grief and loneliness. Richard. Lucy starts, but I'm not done. No, you don't get to Richard me. You don't get to show up with muffins and explanations and expect me to just accept this. I want to talk to someone official, someone with a badge, someone who can verify that this isn't just an elaborate scam to get Harold's files or whatever the hell you're actually after. I can arrange that, a voice says from my doorway, and we all turn to see a woman in her 40s standing there with a badge clipped to her belt and an expression that suggests she's seen too much weird stuff to be surprised by anything anymore. Detective Marian Torres, FBI. And before you ask, yes, I've been listening to this entire conversation. You really should lock your door, Mr. Brennan. Frank jumps so hard he drops his muffin. Mason makes another whimpering sound. Lucy doesn't look surprised, which means she either knew the detective was coming or has the world's best poker face. FBI. I say, because apparently I've lost the ability to form complex sentences. The actual FBI? The actual FBI, Detective Torres confirms, walking into my kitchen like she owns it. She's got that no-nonsense energy that all good cops have, the kind that makes you want to confess to crimes you didn't commit just to avoid disappointing her. I've been working Laura's case for 3 years. Lucy here has been serving as a confidential informant, helping us build a case against the remaining members of the fraud ring. So this is all real, I say flatly. This whole insane story is actually real. Unfortunately, yes. Detective Torres pulls out a chair and sits down without being invited, which seems to be a theme today. And I apologize for the unorthodox approach. We would have brought you in sooner, but Laura was adamant about keeping you out of it for your own safety. She only agreed to let Lucy make contact after we learned the organization was planning to audit Harold's old business connections, including you. They're coming after me? My voice goes up about 3 octaves. Why am I just hearing about this now? Because we needed to verify you didn't know anything first, Torres says bluntly. No offense, but you could have been complicit. We had to rule that out before bringing you into the investigation. I ran an accounting firm. I protest. The most exciting thing I ever did was find a miscalculation in someone's expense report. I didn't launder money. I didn't know Harold was laundering money. I'm boring. I'm so boring that my idea of a wild Friday night is watching Jeopardy and going to bed at 9:30. We know that now, Torres says, and there might be a hint of amusement in her eyes. Which is why we're here. We need your help, Mr. Brennan. And Laura needs your help. Laura. I sink back into my chair, suddenly exhausted. My wife. Who's alive? Who's been alive this whole time while I've been eating microwave dinners and talking to her picture like a crazy person? She never stopped loving you, Lucy says quietly. Everything she did to protect you and Claire. You have to believe that. I look at her. This woman who's my wife's identical twin, who I didn't know existed until an hour ago. And then at Detective Torres with her badge and her serious face. And then at Frank who's still holding half a muffin like he's not sure if he's allowed to finish it during a federal investigation. And finally at Mason on my floor looking like he wishes he'd never been born. When can I see her? I ask. When can I see my wife? Detective Torres exchanges a glance with Lucy. Soon. But first, we need those files. And we need to make sure it's safe. The people we're dealing with, they don't leave loose ends. Like Harold, I say. Like Harold, Torres confirms. So we do this carefully, methodically, and above all, quietly. No telling Claire yet. No telling anyone. Can you do that? I think about my daughter, about her happiness, about the life she's building with the idiot currently sitting on my kitchen floor. I think about Laura, alive somewhere, hiding, waiting. I think about 5 years of grief that might have been unnecessary, and I feel something shift inside me. Not quite anger anymore. Not quite relief. Something in between that I don't have a name for. Yeah, I say finally. I can do that. But Detective Torres, when this is over, when Laura's safe and we've caught these bastards, my wife and I are going to have a very long conversation about communication and trust and the appropriate uses of fake funerals. Torres almost smiles. That's fair, Mr. Brennan. That's very fair. Frank raises his hand like we're in school. So can I finish this muffin, or is it evidence? Detective Torres decides we're all going to the cabin because apparently my life has become a made-for-TV movie, and we're heading toward the dramatic climax where everything gets resolved in one convenient location. I half expect someone to show up with a camera crew and ask me to sign a release form. The drive there is surreal. I'm in my car with Frank riding shotgun, following Torres and Lucy in an unmarked sedan that screams federal agent, trying not to look like a federal agent, so loudly it might as well have a siren. Mason is in the back seat of my car, still looking vaguely nauseous and making small whimpering sounds every time we hit a bump. I've never been more aware of how terrible my car's suspension is. You okay back there, champ? Frank asks, turning around to look at Mason with all the sympathy of a shark observing a wounded seal. I think I'm having a panic attack, Mason whispers. Yeah, that tracks, Frank says, turning back around. Breathe into a paper bag or something. We don't have time for you to pass out again. I don't have a paper bag. Then suffer quietly. I would tell Frank to be nicer, but honestly, I'm still processing the fact that my wife is alive, and I'm about to see her for the first time in 5 years, and Mason's emotional state is pretty low on my priority list right now. Somewhere between remember to buy milk and reorganize sock drawer. The cabin comes into view, and my heart does this weird stuttering thing that makes me wonder if I should have brought my blood pressure medication. It looks the same as I remember. Same blue fence I painted, same porch where Laura and I used to drink morning coffee. Same trees that are slightly taller now, because that's what trees do when you ignore them for 5 years. There's a car parked outside that I don't recognize. A sensible sedan that Laura would have approved of because she always said my taste in vehicles was aggressively mediocre. Detective Torres parks and gets out, immediately going into what I assume is cop mode, scanning the area, checking her phone, talking into her radio in that low-voice law enforcement people use when they're coordinating things. Lucy gets out more slowly, looking at me through the windshield with an expression that might be apologetic or might be nervous. Hard to tell. Everyone stays calm. Torres announces once we're all standing in front of the cabin like the world's most dysfunctional intervention group. Mr. Brennan, your wife is inside. She's aware you're coming. She's nervous. She's nervous? I laugh, and it comes out slightly unhinged. She's been alive for 5 years and I thought she was dead, but she's nervous? That's precious. Richard, Lucy starts, but I hold up my hand. No, I don't want to hear it. I just want to see my wife and figure out if I'm going to hug her or yell at her or possibly both simultaneously. Torres nods and walks up to the cabin door. She knocks, a specific pattern that's probably some kind of code, and the door opens. And there she is. Laura. Not Lucy pretending to be Laura. Not a photo on Mason's phone. Not a ghost or a hallucination or a stress-induced breakdown. Laura, my wife. Alive. Standing in the doorway of our old cabin wearing jeans and a sweater I've never seen before, her hair shorter than she used to wear it, a few more lines around her eyes, but unmistakably, undeniably her. We stare at each other for what feels like 17 hours, but is probably only about 10 seconds. My brain is trying to process too many emotions at once. Relief, anger, joy, betrayal, love, confusion, and it's like someone dumped an entire emotional buffet on my plate and expected me to eat it all at once without choking. "Hi," she says, and her voice is exactly the same. The same voice that used to tell me I was an idiot for trying to fix the washing machine myself. The same voice that sang off-key in the shower. The same voice I thought I'd never hear again. "Hi." I repeat. "Hi? That's what you're going with." "Hi." I didn't know what else to say. She steps out onto the porch, and I can see she's shaking slightly. "Richard, You died." I interrupt, and my voice breaks on the word. "You died, Laura. I buried you. I gave a eulogy. I cried at your funeral. Claire cried. We mourned you. And you were what? Living in protective custody? Starting a new life? Getting a new haircut?" It wasn't like that. She takes a step toward me, then stops like she's not sure if she's allowed. "I wanted to tell you. Every day, I wanted to tell you. But they said if you knew, if anyone knew, you'd be in danger. The people Harold was involved with, they would have killed you to get to me. So you let me think you were dead instead." I'm not yelling. I'm surprised I'm not yelling. My voice is quiet, controlled, which somehow feels worse. That was the better option. It was the only option that kept you alive. Tears are running down her face now, and part of me, the part that still loves her despite everything, wants to wipe them away. The other part wants to keep standing here, maintaining this distance, because if I get too close I might fall apart completely. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Detective Torres clears her throat. "Mr. Brennan, I know this is difficult, but we need to verify identity officially. For the record." She pulls out some kind of fingerprint scanner that looks like it belongs in a science fiction movie, and Laura holds out her hand without being asked. The scanner beeps. Torres checks something on her phone, then nods. "Confirmed. This is Laura Marie Brennan, your wife. Officially verified via fingerprints that match her original records." "Well, that's something," Frank mutters. "At least we're not dealing with a clone situation. That would be awkward." Laura looks past me to the group assembled in our old cabin's yard. She sees Lucy and nods slightly. Then she sees Mason, and her expression shifts to something between confusion and disgust. Why is Claire's husband here?" she asks. "Long story," I say. "Short version. He's an idiot who thought your sister was you and has been secretly meeting her here every Tuesday because he believed you faked your death for a spiritual retreat, which, in hindsight, is only slightly less believable than the actual truth." Laura blinks, processes, turns to look at Mason with an expression that could melt steel. "You've been doing what?" Mason, to his credit or possibly his extreme stupidity, actually tries to explain. "I thought I was helping. Lucy said she was you, and she needed. My sister told you she was me, your mother-in-law, and you didn't think that was weird?" Laura's voice has that quality it used to get when she was about to demolish someone verbally. "I've missed that voice. You didn't think to mention to your wife that her supposedly dead mother was alive and asking you to meet her secretly?" "I was confused." Mason protests weakly. "You're always confused," Frank adds helpfully. "It's kind of your thing." Detective Torres steps in before Laura can tear into Mason further, which is probably for the best, because I'm not sure my heart can handle watching my wife verbally destroy my son-in-law while also processing the fact that she's alive. We need to focus. The people who wanted Laura dead, they're still out there. We've made arrests, but there are more. We need those files from Harold's cloud server. Laura looks at me, and I see a flash of the woman I married. Determined, strong, still terrified but hiding it well. "I never wanted you involved in this, Richard. Harold kept everything separate from you deliberately. He knew you were honest. Too honest for what he was doing. But he kept backups of everything. Insurance policy against his partners. He gave me the login information before he died. Made me promise to use it if anything happened to him. And then something did happen to him. I say, they killed him. They killed him because he was going to turn witness," Laura confirms. "And I was the only one who knew where the evidence was. So I had to disappear. Had to make them think the threat was gone." She pauses. "I'm sorry I let you think I was gone too. I'm sorry for all of it." I stand there, heart conflicted between love and fury and this strange urge to laugh, because the absurdity of this entire situation is so overwhelming that laughing seems like the only reasonable response. My wife faked her death. My business partner was murdered by mobsters. My son-in-law has been meeting my dead wife's twin sister at our old cabin. This is my life. This is what retirement looks like. You could have just texted me. I finally say, and I can hear the edge of hysteria in my voice trying to masquerade as humor. Laura laughs through her tears. Actually laughs? And it's such a familiar sound that something in my chest cracks up. Detective Torres's radio crackles, and she steps away to answer it. When she comes back, she's all business. We've got movement on the suspects. 3 arrests made in the past hour based on preliminary evidence. We need those files now to make everything stick. Laura nods and pulls out a piece of paper from her pocket. Here's the login information. Everything Harold backed up is there. Transactions, communications, client lists. Everything you need. Torres takes the paper and immediately gets on her phone, relaying information to someone. Within minutes, there are more cars pulling up, actual FBI agents with windbreakers that say FBI on them because subtlety is apparently not required anymore. The next hour is a blur of activity. Agents going in and out of the cabin. Torres coordinating arrests. Someone setting up a laptop to access Harold's files. Frank eating another muffin that Lucy apparently brought multiple baskets of. Mason sitting on the porch steps looking like he's contemplating every life choice that led him to this moment. And Laura and I just stand there, a few feet apart, not quite touching, not quite talking, just existing in each other's space for the first time in 5 years. Eventually, Torres comes back over. We've got what we need. The remaining members of the organization are being rounded up as we speak. This is over, Mrs. Brennan. You're safe now. You both are. She hands each of us a brochure. I look down at it. Trauma-Informed Therapy, a guide to processing complex grief and family reunification. Therapy brochures, I say flatly. The FBI gives out therapy brochures. Standard protocol for situations like this, Torres says without a trace of irony. You've both been through significant trauma. Professional help is recommended. Situations like this, Laura repeats. How many situations like this are there? More than you'd think. Less than would make a good reality TV show. Months later, I'm standing in a church watching my daughter renew her vows with the man who thought having a secret relationship with his supposedly dead mother-in-law was a reasonable life choice. The fact that this is happening at all is a testament to either Claire's capacity for forgiveness or her commitment to sunk costs, and I'm honestly not sure which. The therapy brochures Detective Torres gave us weren't just suggestions, they were requirements. Laura and I have been attending couples counseling with Dr. Patricia Henderson, a woman who has the patience of a saint and the ability to make both of us feel like we're crazy without actually saying we're crazy. It's a gift, really. She's helped us work through what she calls complex grief layered with betrayal trauma and existential confusion, which is therapists speak for, your marriage is a dumpster fire, but we can probably save it. The rebuilding process has been slow, awkward. There were a lot of conversations that started with, I can't believe you, and ended with one of us crying or both of us laughing because the alternative was screaming into the void. We've had to relearn each other. Laura's different now, harder in some ways, more cautious, with shadows in her eyes that weren't there before. I'm different too, apparently. According to Laura, I've become aggressively set in my ways and emotionally constipated even by retirement standards, which seems harsh but might be accurate. We're taking it slow. She moved back into the house 3 months ago, but she has her own room because Dr. Henderson said something about establishing boundaries and rebuilding intimacy gradually, which I think means we're basically roommates who used to be married and might be married again if we can figure out how to be in the same space without one of us bringing up the fake funeral. Claire found out the truth about 2 weeks after the cabin showdown. We sat her down. Me, Laura, and Detective Torres, because apparently we needed professional backup to tell my daughter that her mother wasn't actually dead and her husband was an idiot. Claire went through what Dr. Henderson would probably call the stages of grief in reverse, starting with disbelief, cycling through anger, and eventually landing on a kind of exhausted acceptance that her family is functionally insane. She almost left Mason. Should have left Mason, in my opinion. But I kept that opinion to myself because Dr. Henderson said something about supporting Claire's agency and avoiding patriarchal control patterns. So I bit my tongue and watched my daughter work through her own therapy with a different therapist, thank God, because having the whole family see the same therapist seemed like it would get complicated. Mason, for his part, has been doing what I can only describe as aggressive groveling. He quit his job and started working at a nonprofit that helps fraud victims, which Laura said was either genuine remorse or extremely calculated image rehabilitation. He goes to therapy 3 times a week. He deleted all his social media. He leaves his phone face up on the table during dinner to prove he has nothing to hide, which is honestly just sad at this point. But Claire decided to give him another chance, and they're renewing their vows today because apparently almost destroying your marriage through spectacular stupidity is grounds for a do-over ceremony. Laura thinks it's romantic. I think it's evidence that love makes people make questionable decisions, but I'm keeping that to myself because I've already used up my quota of cynical comments for the week. The church is small, intimate, filled with friends and family who don't know the full story of why we're here. The official explanation is that Claire and Mason wanted to recommit to their marriage with their full family present, which is technically true if you ignore all the fraud and fake deaths and FBI investigations. Laura's sitting next to me in the front pew, wearing a blue dress that makes her look almost exactly like she did at our wedding 38 years ago, except for the shorter hair and the lines around her eyes, and the general air of someone who's been through witness protection. She reaches over and takes my hand, and I let her, because despite everything, despite the anger and the grief and the 5 years of loneliness, I still love her. I'm still furious with her about half the time, and she's still frustrated with me for being emotionally unavailable and passive-aggressive about the whole death-faking thing, but we're working on it. Claire walks down the aisle looking radiant in a simple white dress, and Mason stands at the altar looking like a man who knows he doesn't deserve a second chance, but is grateful he's getting one anyway. The ceremony is short, sweet, and remarkably free of drama, which is a nice change of pace for our family. The reception is at some fancy venue Claire picked out that probably cost more than my first car. There's a DJ playing music that's too loud, food that's trying too hard to be fancy, and an open bar that's getting more action than it should at 4 in the afternoon. Frank is already 3 drinks in and telling anyone who'll listen about how he cracked the case of Laura's disappearance, conveniently leaving out the part where he thought she was a ghost and wore a fake mustache to a stakeout. When it's time for toasts, Frank stands up with a microphone and a confidence that can only come from whiskey and poor judgment. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, swaying slightly. "I've known Mason for about a year now, and in that time, I've learned that he's a man of many talents. He's good at his job. He's devoted to Claire, and he's exceptionally skilled at making catastrophically stupid decisions that involve federal investigations." The room goes silent. Claire looks mortified. Mason looks like he wants to dissolve into the floor. Laura squeezes my hand so hard I lose feeling in my fingers. But Frank continues, apparently immune to social cues. He's also a man who's willing to admit when he's wrong, who's willing to do the work, who's willing to go to therapy 3 times a week and work at a nonprofit and generally grovel like his life depends on it. And honestly, that's more than I can say for most men his age. So here's to Claire and Mason. May their second attempt at marriage be significantly less complicated than their first. And may Mason's phone stay in his pocket where it belongs. He raises his glass. The room erupts in confused applause because nobody knows what else to do. Claire is both laughing and crying. Mason looks like he's survived an execution he definitely deserved. "That might be the worst toast I've ever heard," Laura whispers to me. "That might be the worst toast anyone's ever heard." I correct her. It could qualify as hate speech. But we're both smiling. Can't help it. This is our life now. Weird, complicated, occasionally involving the FBI, but ours. Later, after the cake has been cut and the DJ has played Celebration twice for some reason, Laura and I sneak outside for some air. We're standing by the venue's garden, watching the sun set over what's probably someone's expensive landscaping, and she turns to me with that expression she gets when she's about to say something serious. "I know this hasn't been easy," she says quietly. "I know I hurt you. Hurt Claire. Hurt everyone by leaving the way I did. And I know that sorry isn't enough, will never be enough, but I need you to know that I thought about you every single day. Every morning, every night, wondering if you were okay, if you were eating properly, if you were taking your blood pressure medication. I wasn't, I admit. Eating properly, I mean. The medication I was pretty good about because I didn't want to die and prove you right about my cholesterol. She laughs, that same laugh I fell in love with decades ago, and leans against me. We're going to be okay, aren't we? Eventually. Eventually, I agree. Might take another few years of therapy and possibly some heavy medication, but yeah, we'll be okay. When people ask how we got back together, and they do ask, constantly, because apparently our story has become neighborhood gossip, I tell them, my wife ghosted me. Literally. She faked her death, joined witness protection, and then came back when the FBI wrapped up their investigation. You know, normal marriage stuff. Most people laugh because they think I'm joking. The ones who know the truth just nod sympathetically and change the subject, which I appreciate. Every Tuesday now, because apparently we're committed to keeping that day meaningful. Instead of Laura meeting Mason at the cabin and me spiraling into paranoid investigations, we have a standing date. Sometimes it's coffee at the diner. Sometimes it's a walk around the park. Sometimes it's just sitting in our living room, her reading a book while I watch whatever documentary Netflix is recommending, existing in the same space without the weight of secrets between us. And every Tuesday, I send Laura a text message that reads, "Still alive, still married, still annoyed." And she replies, without fail, "Still better looking than you." It's become our thing, our way of acknowledging everything that happened while also moving forward. Dr. Henderson says it's a healthy coping mechanism that demonstrates emotional growth, which means she approves but wishes we'd be less sarcastic about our trauma. Frank comes by every Sunday for coffee and to complain about how retirement is boring now that we're not investigating anything. Lucy visits once a month, always bringing baked goods and updates about the fraud case trials, which are apparently going well. Mason keeps his distance but sends awkward cards on holidays that say things like, "Thank you for not having me arrested," and "Hope you're both doing well, sorry again about everything." Claire stops by twice a week, sometimes with Mason, sometimes without. She's found a new appreciation for our family's dysfunction, saying it's given her perspective on what a healthy marriage actually looks like, which I think is both a compliment and an insult, but I'll take it. Somewhere between laughter and disbelief, between anger and forgiveness, between Tuesday texts and therapy sessions and Frank's terrible toasts, I realize something that Dr. Henderson has been trying to get me to see for months. Life's crazy. Life's complicated. Life involves fake deaths and FBI investigations and son-in-laws who make spectacularly stupid decisions. But at least it's mine. At least it's ours. And somewhere in all this chaos, there's Laura, still annoying me, still making me laugh, still better looking than me even after everything we've been through. And honestly, that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. I discovered that my wife was having an affair with her secretary. I took all her dirty underwear to the office and threw them on her desk in front of everyone. You ever open an email so bad it kills your hunger, your mood, and maybe your will to live? Yeah, that was me on a perfectly normal Tuesday morning. Brooks Walker, suburban husband, proud minivan warrior, an occasional unpaid Uber driver for 2 kids who think seatbelts are optional. I wasn't out to start World War III. I just wanted breakfast. Maybe a sausage biscuit, maybe peace. But fate, that twisted little comedian, decided I needed a full-course meal of heartbreak with a side of stupidity. It started when I borrowed my wife's iPad to order takeout, because apparently, Clara changed our DoorDash password more often than our bedsheets. I typed burger in the search bar, and instead of getting Five Guys, I get something else. An open tab labeled Special Project, Confidential. Now, I don't know about you, but after 15 years of marriage, confidential means one of 2 things: birthday surprise or betrayal. Spoiler alert, it wasn't balloons. The screen lit up with a thread of emails and texts between my lovely wife and her assistant, a 20-something gym rat named Jasper Lee. A man whose Instagram bio probably read, entrepreneur, protein enthusiast, part-time idiot. The first message said, "Can't wait for our meeting after hours," winking face, followed by pictures that could make a priest drop his Bible and sprint. There were heart emojis, lip emojis, and a few attachments that would have violated at least 3 workplace policies and 1 moral code. I scrolled. Every swipe was like taking a punch. Your wife's the best boss ever. You make me feel alive. Wish my husband was as adventurous as you. You know what I wish? That I hadn't read any of it. My appetite died so fast it deserved a funeral. There I was, sitting in my kitchen, half-eaten toast in hand, realizing my marriage had turned into an unpaid internship for a man who called women shoddy. No tears came. No dramatic violin music. Just that weird numb silence, like my brain had filed for emotional bankruptcy. The coffee machine hissed, and for some reason, that sound felt like it was mocking me. I leaned back and looked at the ceiling, muttering, 15 years, and she cheats with someone who says yo in work emails. I swear I heard the ceiling fan whisper, "You married her, bro." I didn't shout, didn't break a plate, didn't even throw the iPad, which is growth, by the way, considering I once punched a wall over losing my fantasy football league. Instead, I made a mental note. If she wanted drama, I'd give her a show worthy of an Emmy. Because if you're going to make me look like a fool, at least I'm going to look good doing it. That night, I kept it casual. She came home all smiles, wearing that "I'm exhausted but mysterious" expression. You know the one. She kissed my cheek and said, "Long day." I wanted to say, "Oh, I bet," but instead, I smiled and said, "Order takeout." It took every ounce of willpower not to mention the special project I'd seen. She babbled about a client dinner, how Jasper worked so hard, and how the new ad campaign would change the company's image. I nodded, thinking, oh, it's changing all right. Then she said something that nearly made me choke on my water. "You should really meet Jasper sometime. He's a great guy." Yeah, a great guy? If great meant barely legal homewrecker with biceps bigger than his sense of decency. I laughed. It wasn't my usual laugh. It was the kind that makes people shift uncomfortably, like they just realized the clown at the birthday party might be unhinged. Clara looked confused, but I just waved it off and said, "You're right. I'd love to meet him." She had no idea that the next time we met, there'd be witnesses and possibly a hashtag involved. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the ceiling, next to a woman who snored like nothing was wrong. I started thinking about our history, the wedding with the bad DJ, the mortgage we fought over, the nights she claimed to be catching up on work. Turns out she was catching something, but it wasn't spreadsheets. Around 2 a.m., I got up and walked to the kitchen. The fridge light flickered on like it knew I needed company. I opened a beer and started laughing quietly to myself. You ever laugh so hard at how ridiculous your life is that you almost admire it? That was me, barefoot, drinking cheap beer, thinking about how my wife turned project management into private management. I considered confronting her right then. But where's the fun in that? Nah. Clara was about to get a front row seat to her own downfall, and I was going to direct it. Calm, precise, cinematic. The next morning, I made breakfast like usual. Pancakes, bacon, orange juice. Clara walked in, looking guilty of nothing and dressed like Pinterest personified. "You're in a good mood," she said. "Yup," I replied. "Just feeling inspired." She smiled, completely oblivious, and kissed me on the cheek. That's when I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was entertained. Betrayal had turned me into a screenwriter, and this was Act 1. I dropped the kids off at school, humming to myself like a man who'd found religion in revenge. The whole drive, I thought about how people cheat thinking they're living some secret movie romance. But they forget every movie ends with credits, and I hold the remote. Later that day, I logged into her work calendar. Don't ask how. I'm just gifted, and found her next company meeting. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wanted an audience. I've always been a people person, especially when those people can witness poetic justice live in an HD. That evening, I watched her get ready for her late-night meeting. She sprayed perfume, fixed her hair, and said, "Don't wait up." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said, smiling like a man who just set a trap and was waiting for it to snap. When she left, I sat down with the iPad again. This time, I screenshotted everything. Every message, every emoji, every scandalous pixel. I didn't want revenge built on rumor. I wanted receipts. I even made a folder on my desktop titled House of Lies. It felt professional. Somewhere around midnight, I realized something wild. I wasn't sad. I was excited. I'd finally stopped being the nice guy husband everyone took for granted. The man who unclogged toilets while his wife played Candy Crush on company time. No, sir. This was my villain origin story, and I was going to have fun with it. I cleaned the kitchen, because revenge feels better in a spotless space, and then I poured another beer. To new beginnings, I said to nobody, raising the bottle like a toast to my own bad decisions. The funny thing? In that moment, I wasn't even sure if I wanted her back. What I wanted was balance. A little public embarrassment. A little humility. Maybe a trending hashtag. Because while she was out spreading sheets, I was about to air laundry. And believe me, when a betrayed husband stops crying and starts smiling, that's when the real story begins. You know that moment when you're doing something so petty yet so therapeutic you start questioning whether you're healing or just evolving into your final villain form. Yeah, that was me, Brooks Walker, 43 years old, standing in my laundry room at midnight with a pile of dirty clothes that smelled like betrayal and bad decisions. See, after discovering my wife's extracurricular activities with her abs enthusiast assistant, I decided that revenge shouldn't be a single act. It should be a well-planned campaign. Think of me as the Martha Stewart of emotional warfare. My wife Clara thought she was having a normal Thursday night, working late at Bright Vista Media, which apparently now doubles as a dating app headquarters. Meanwhile, I went full CSI, suburbia on her wardrobe. I wasn't just doing laundry, I was building evidence. Every piece of clothing told a story, and buddy, these garments had more drama than daytime television. First came the yoga pants. Oh, the yoga pants. Black, stretchy, and so worn they looked like they'd done more lunges than a personal trainer on commission. I held them up by the waistband and muttered, "You've seen things, haven't you?" They didn't answer, but the faint whiff of Jasper's cologne did. Next came the underwear. Not the regular, everyday ones with little bows and practicality. No, these were the lacy, mood lighting required kind. I didn't even know she owned half of them. I'm pretty sure some of those sets were new purchases, like recent affair budget kind of new. One still had the tag. The audacity. Then there was the mysterious white top that smelled like gym deodorant and a brand of cologne I'd never owned. I sniffed it once, gagged, and said out loud, "Well, that's not Tide." My dog, Cooper, tilted his head like he too was offended by the level of disrespect. It was around then that the crazy idea hit me. It started innocent enough. I thought, you know what would be funny? Washing all this and folding it neatly with labels like evidence say. But then I looked at the mountain of deceit on the floor, and something inside me snapped, in a productive way. Why settle for symbolic when you could go theatrical? That's when the plan was born. Take every piece of Clara's dirty laundry, literal and emotional, and bring it right to her workplace. Nothing says good morning, corporate, like a husband dragging a 50-pound bag of betrayal into your 10 a.m. meeting. Some men write angry letters. I do performance art. I could almost hear the narrator in a true crime documentary saying, "It was at this moment Brooks decided to stop being a victim and start being a headline." I poured myself another cup of coffee, the kind that tastes like ambition and bad ideas, and started sorting. Reds with reds, delicates in their own pile, and anything that looked like it had seen Jasper went straight into the public humiliation category. You ever fold clothes with righteous fury? It's cleansing. Therapeutic, even. Every shirt I folded was another memory I erased, another piece of her facade dismantled. I even ironed a few, because if you're going to expose someone, do it wrinkle-free. Around 1 a.m., I started narrating my own documentary. Here we see the suburban husband in his natural habitat, plotting the downfall of a cheating spouse while handling 40% polyester. I laughed so hard I scared myself. The neighbors probably thought I was losing it. Maybe I was, but I was losing it in style. Halfway through, I found a hoodie that wasn't mine, one of those tight gym hoodies that says, "I lift and I want you to know." The initials JL were stitched on the tag. Jasper Lee. My vision went red for a second, but then I smiled. "Perfect," I said, holding it up like a trophy. "You're coming with me, champ." I tossed it into the bag, already imagining the priceless look on his face when he saw it again, this time surrounded by Clara's unmentionables in front of her entire team. Oh, this wasn't just revenge. This was art with a moral. I started imagining the office scene in detail. The shocked interns, the gasping coworkers, the sound of Clara's PR career flatlining. I wanted witnesses. I wanted a crowd. If I was going to burn down 15 years of trust, I was at least going to roast some marshmallows over the flames. But here's the thing about revenge, it's exhausting. Around 2:30 a.m., I collapsed on the floor surrounded by detergent bottles and betrayal, wondering how I got here. 1 minute you're a loving husband reminding your kids to brush their teeth. The next you're knee-deep in your wife's Victoria's Secret collection plotting public humiliation like it's the Super Bowl. Cooper came over, sat next to me, and rested his head on my knee. You still love her? His eyes seemed to ask. Love? I said out loud. Buddy, I'm way past love. I'm in the creative stage of grief. He licked my hand. Loyal, judgment-free, and smarter than half the people in that marriage. By 3 a.m., everything was folded, sorted, and packed neatly into one massive laundry bag, the kind you could fit a human body in. I tied it tight and labeled it with a sticky note that read, "Return to sender." I stood there, admiring my work like Michelangelo staring up at the Sistine Chapel. My magnum opus wasn't painted, it was bagged. I imagined Clara walking into her office tomorrow, sipping her overpriced latte, talking about quarterly goals, completely unaware her husband had just transformed into the Banksy of revenge. Then I heard the garage door creak. It was her. She was home. I froze, mid-step, holding the bag like a burglar caught with Santa's sack. Clara walked in, heels clicking, hair perfect, smelling like expensive perfume and deceit. You're up late, she said, setting her purse down. Couldn't sleep, I replied, keeping my voice calm. Laundry night. She frowned. At 3 a.m.? Yup, I said, just trying to keep things clean. The irony almost made me laugh. She didn't notice the sarcasm, or maybe she did but chose to ignore it. That's Clara for you. Ignoring warning signs is her superpower. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, You're such a good husband. Oh, if only she knew. That's what they tell me. I replied, watching her head upstairs. I waited until I heard the shower running before whispering to the dog. She really has no idea. Cooper gave a quiet bark, which I took as approval. I dragged the bag out to my truck and tossed it in the back, covering it with a tarp. It looked like I was prepping for a home renovation or a low-budget kidnapping. I laughed again. Revenge makes you weird. I climbed into the driver's seat and checked my phone. 3:47 a.m. The world was asleep, but my mind was buzzing. I had one rule. If you're going to retaliate, do it with precision. No rage posts, no drunk voicemails. Just quiet, devastating execution. That's how legends are made. I drove around the block once, testing the thrill of it all. The hum of the engine, the soft glow of streetlights, the adrenaline, felt like I was in an Ocean's 11 montage, except instead of robbing a casino, I was robbing my wife's dignity. I parked back in the driveway, turned off the truck, and sat there for a while, imagining tomorrow's chaos. I could already see the office headlines. Bright Vista employees' marriage implodes during PowerPoint presentation. I might even trend under #domestic drama. When I finally went inside, Clara was asleep, curled up peacefully like she hadn't just detonated our marriage. I stared at her for a long time. Part of me wanted to wake her up and scream, "Why?" But another part, the smarter, pettier part, knew that silence was the weapon she'd never see coming. I lay down beside her and whispered, "Tomorrow's laundry day, honey. Hope you're ready." She stirred but didn't wake. Maybe somewhere deep down, she sensed the shift, that her days of control were numbered. Morning came too fast. Sunlight hit the blinds, birds were chirping, and I was wide awake, dressed in jeans and a dark hoodie, sipping coffee like a man with purpose. Clara kissed my cheek before leaving for work. "Big day today," she said. "Wish me luck." I smiled. "You're gonna need it." She laughed, thinking it was playful banter. I watched her drive off, then looked at the laundry bag in the garage, still sitting there like a ticking time bomb wrapped in cotton and polyester. "Showtime," I whispered. As I loaded it into the truck, I caught my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, messy hair, but damn if I didn't look like someone reborn. People talk about closure like it's some peaceful thing you find at a yoga retreat. Nah. Sometimes closure is dragging your wife's dirty laundry into her office with the confidence of a man who's got nothing left to lose. And me? I had just enough left to make it legendary. I don't know if there's a rulebook for turning marital betrayal into guerrilla theater, but if there is, I photocopied it, scribbled "Do not follow" in the margins, and color-coded the tabs. Call me thorough. After laundry day, which, for the record, was nothing short of cathartic and smelled faintly of fabric softener and schadenfreude, I spent the next morning drafting my battle plan like a man deciding whether to use a paintball gun or a flamethrower. Both effective. One probably arrests you, and both get you great footage. I'm Brooks Walker, and in the war of the heart, I've decided to be both tactician and morale booster. The battlefield? Bright Vista Media, a glass and steel palace where transparency is marketing speak and moral fiber, is a seldom ordered side on the company cafeteria menu. She'd built her brand on the idea that the company was authentic, and that's exactly what I plan to amplify, authentically. First order of business, attire. You don't storm a corporate compound in a disgruntled dad hoodie, unless you want to be memed into oblivion. I did a lap through my closet like a man picking his armor for a Renaissance fair, and settled on a dark blazer, sharp jeans, and shoes with just enough polish to suggest I still had job prospects beyond passive-aggressive viral stunts. I looked like someone who could either run a meeting or start a respectable podcast. Next, the prop. I considered every option. Karaoke machine with irreplaceable cued, a slideshow of receipts, maybe even a billboard truck. But practicality and style won. A heavy-duty laundry bag, monogrammed in my head as Exhibit A, stuffed full with Clara's most incriminating textiles, and a hoodie with the initials JL stitched in like a mocking badge. That hoodie felt poetic justice. It practically hummed with arrogance and protein powder. In the passenger seat, Cooper sat like a small, judgmental general, and I swear he understood the gravity of the mission. I had Leon on speed dial, my lawyer friend whose ethics are flexible, but whose loyalty is suspiciously unwavering. He was excited in a way that made me half proud and half deeply concerned for his social calendar. "Brooks," he said, voice crackling with laughter, "this is dumb genius. Don't do anything illegal. But also, if you do, call me first. I promise nothing." Next up, reconnaissance. I arrived at Bright Vista an hour early, because the early bird gets the footage and the late bird gets postponed by HR. The building looked like a startup that had eaten a designer magazine. Glass everywhere, succulents on every flat surface, and motivational posters about synergy that would have made a used car salesman blush. The receptionist, a woman named Dana who smiled like she'd been trained at charm school and deployed at the front desk, greeted me with that professional confusion reserved for people who show up to work with a packed gym bag or a suspiciously large casserole. "Hi, can I help you?" she asked, already deciding whether to be helpful or call security. I flashed my most innocuous smile and said, "I'm here to drop something off for Clara Walker." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Either she'd read the memo about Clara's late-night meetings, or she'd recognize the look of a man who'd watched his marriage dissolve in an inbox. "Name?" she asked, a polite bouncer. "Brooks Walker," I said. "Hubby? Husband? Mister?" "Deliveries say from home." She typed something, glanced at the screen, and then asked, "Do you have an appointment?" That's when I leaned in like we were conspiring on a secret. "Does Destiny need an appointment?" I asked, because drama loves a rhetorical question. Dana hesitated, which in corporate speak means she was consulting the manual titled, "How to Stay Neutral in Spousal Warfare." "I'll buzz her," she said, because she had a spine of flexible plastic. While we waited, I took in the office vibe. Millennials with rolled sleeves and disposable cold brew, a whiteboard with half-erased campaign slogans that were probably expensive, and a fish tank. Because nothing says we care like fish doing their best impression of a calm workplace. Someone walked past in branded leggings, probably an influencer who also did web design on weekends. I imagined Clara in the center of it all, exuding executive confidence, her PR smile primed, unaware that her domestic theater troupe was assembling in the lobby. The elevator pinged, and out floated a cloud of perfume and the sound of confident shoes. Clara swept in like a woman untouchable. High heels, blazer, hair that had clearly been blessed by a stylist, and Jasper behind her, the human embodiment of a protein shake, looking like he was about to pitch an app called Abs and Ads. He had that look of someone who thought the world owed him something and was figuring it might be my wife. My heart didn't pound. That was for amateurs. I felt the calm right before a chuckle, like a man about to test the universe's best revenge taco. Clara's smile, when she saw me, was a dodge. "Brooks, what are you doing here?" she asked, a practiced tone of surprise in her voice that suggested she'd rehearsed it for focus groups. "Oh, dropping off the laundry," I said, casually, letting the word hang in the air like an unsent text. Jasper blinked like someone who'd been told to pivot from selfie to responsibility mid-swipe. Clara's PR instincts kicked in. She glanced around, looking for damage control. That's when I laid out phase 1, show, don't tweet. I hoisted the bag like a victorious athlete and walked past glass cubicles, past a wall of framed awards about innovation and disruption, and into their open-plan paradise, where the hum of productivity met the slight whiff of artisan coffee. Phones paused mid-scroll. Laptops got a touch of drama. People turned, because human beings are trained to watch when someone treats a corporate meeting like an improv stage. I could see Jasper's face go from gym model smug to the precise shade of embarrassment you only get when your ego meets public opinion. Clara's jaw set and her eyes flashed. Anger, yes, but also the calculation of a woman who had spent years managing brand narratives and was now forced to face one of her own. Meeting stopped. Someone whispered, "Is that?" And 3 people started recording with their phones like they were fulfilling a civic duty. I placed the bag, ceremonially, on the conference table, the polyester equivalent of a gavel. It sagged under the weight of intimacy and cotton blends, and for a moment the room smelled like detergent and betrayal, a scent I'd call ode to consequence. I didn't scream. I didn't fling accusations like confetti. Instead, I used the deadpan of a man who knew chaos is more devastating when delivered with impeccable timing. I thought I'd drop off Clara's laundry, I said, loud enough for the entire office to hear, but measured like a news anchor. She's been working so hard. Figured she'd appreciate the help. Murmurs rose like warm steam. Someone laughed, nervous laughter, the kind you hear in a courtroom before someone confesses. The HR director, who had the uncanny talent of looking like she'd swallowed a handbook on conflict resolution, rose and said, "Sir, you can't." And I cut her off with the kind of smile that said, "Oh, we're past rules." Jasper's face had the distinct shade of someone who realizes his social currency just plummeted and he probably needed to update his life choices. Clara, on the other hand, looked like a lawyer revising a closing argument on the fly. That's the thing about corporate warfare. You need the crowd. Corporations are built on appearances. I was about to make theirs uncomfortable and extraordinarily honest. I let the silence linger, because silence is a weapon as old as time and twice as effective when you have a bag full of bras on a table. Phones recorded, cameras streamed, and somewhere in the server room a printer finally stopped printing meaningless PowerPoint slides in confusion. I could see the wheels turning in people's heads, speculation, gossip, career calculus. The damage was already being assessed in real time, and I was oddly proud. This wasn't just about humiliation. It was about exposure, about showing that the polished brand they'd all embraced was just as messy behind the curtain as any suburban kitchen. I'd planned for shock. I'd planned for a PR scramble. I hadn't planned for how weirdly gratifying it felt to be the man who forced a room full of professionals to consider the domestic consequences of their office romances. As I stood there, blazer slightly rumpled from exertion, I realized I'd crossed a line from which there was no easy return, mine or theirs. But then again, I hadn't wanted easy. I wanted real. I wanted to watch people who sell authenticity for a living confront actual truth. And in a world of filters, a raw moment like that feels downright revolutionary. The receptionist later told me she'd never seen the Slack channel go that quiet. The interns later described it as intense, like Monday, but worse. Jasper later deleted his accounts and probably considered a relocation to a country with fewer social norms. Clara later called me every name in 3 languages and a few I didn't know. But right then, in that sunlit conference room, with the laundry bag splayed open like the last chapter of a guilty novel, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not victory, too petty a word, but clarity. I'd started this thing as a hurt guy with a full laundry bag and ended up an unwilling playwright staging the slow, very public unraveling of someone who had lied in plain text. Corporate warfare, it turns out, is messy, loud, and strangely civilized when you do it with style. And I was just getting started. There are moments in life when you can literally feel your dignity pack its bags and move to a different zip code. For some people, it's when they get dumped by text. For others, it's tripping on stage at graduation. For me, it was dragging a 50-pound bag of my wife's dirty laundry into the glass-walled conference room of Bright Vista Media, while half the office live-tweeted their confusion. The elevator ride up was cinematic. The soft music played some light jazz that felt offensive to my mission, So I hummed the Imperial March under my breath instead. Every floor that passed, I imagined the audience waiting. Clara, Jasper, and a bunch of co-workers about to learn that working closely meant something entirely different after hours. The elevator doors opened with that cheerful corporate ding, and I stepped into the corridor like a man delivering divine judgment wrapped in polyester. The bag thudded behind me as I dragged it along the marble floor, the sound echoing like guilt in an empty church. People looked up from their monitors, wide eyes, mid-sip coffees, a guy dropping his pen in slow motion. "Morning," I said casually, like I wasn't about to detonate a marriage in 4K. "Delivery for Mrs. Walker." The receptionist from earlier, Dana, blinked like she was seeing a ghost who also had a Home Depot membership. Sir, you can't." "Relax," I said, flashing her a reassuring smile. "I'm family, just returning some of her personal effects." I pressed my access badge from her gym membership, the one she'd left in my truck cup holder, against the security scanner. It beeped green. Sweet poetic irony. The double doors slid open, and I was in. The air conditioning hit me like courtroom tension. Inside, the company's quarterly meeting was in full swing. Rows of employees faced a massive presentation screen that said Q2 growth and future projections, but they were about to witness a very different kind of growth, one involving my spine. Clara stood near the head of the table, wearing her CEO Barbie outfit, sleek white blouse, pencil skirt, and that confident posture that said, "I manipulate investors for breakfast." Right next to her was Jasper, the human bicep, leaning against the wall like he'd invented PowerPoint. "Hey, honey," I called out. Heads turned like dominoes. The room fell silent except for the low hum of the projector fan. Clara froze mid-sentence, her smile glitching like bad Wi-Fi. Jasper's face went from smug to oh in half a second. "Forgot something at home." I continued cheerfully, dragging the laundry bag across the polished floor. The squeak of fabric against tile echoed through the room, followed by the dull thud as I dropped it beside her desk. I followed. I stood straight, brushed off imaginary lint, and nodded politely to the stunned audience. Team effort's important, right? So I figured since she's been working so closely with her assistant, maybe he could help her sort through this. Then, with the flourish of a man signing the Declaration of Independence, I unzipped the bag. It was glorious. A waterfall of yoga pants, lacy lingerie, and Jasper's gym hoodie cascaded across the conference table like the world's most scandalous fashion show. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Someone dropped a coffee mug. It shattered dramatically, like it was in on the bit. A few people choked back laughter. One in turn mouthed, "Oh my God," while another discreetly hit record on her phone like she'd just stumbled upon free entertainment. Clara's face turned every shade of red known to Pantone. Jasper looked ready to teleport. I tilted my head, channeling pure calm chaos. "Since you already know her sizes," I said to Jasper, "I trust you'll make sure everything's folded properly." Silence. Real silence. The kind that hums in your bones. Then came the whispers, the phone stealthily snapping photos, and the faintest sound of someone trying, and failing, not to snort laugh. I gave a small bow. Laundry's all about teamwork, folks. Remember that. The HR manager, a pale man in a beige suit who looked like he fainted recreationally, stood up. "Sir, you need to leave." "Oh, absolutely," I said with exaggerated politeness. Wouldn't want to interrupt this clean workplace culture. The pun landed. Someone laughed out loud. The man in beige looked like he wished the carpet would swallow him whole. Clara regained her voice. "Brooks, what the hell are you doing?" she hissed, trying to sound composed, but her voice trembled like a badly tuned violin. "Oh, just being supportive," I said, smiling. "You said transparency was one of your company's core values. Figured I'd contribute." The crowd collectively inhaled like they'd all just witnessed a slap in real time. Jasper tried to speak, but all he managed was, "This isn't." He's twisting. I interrupted. "Buddy, you've been doing all the twisting. I'm just unrolling the truth." Dana, bless her chaotic heart, was peeking through the glass door, hand over her mouth, half horrified and half ready to text the group chat. I winked at her. The conference room was pure pandemonium now. HR whispering about protocols, marketing pretending to take notes, and one middle-aged accountant openly eating popcorn from her purse. Clara straightened up, trying to reclaim her composure. "This is harassment," she declared. "You've crossed a line." "Oh, Clara," I said softly, leaning in just enough for the crowd to hear. "You crossed it first. I'm just highlighting it in neon." Security finally arrived. Two guys who looked too young to have handled anything beyond printer malfunctions. One said, "Sir, you need to come with us." Like he was rehearsing for a cop drama. "Sure," I replied easily. But before I do, I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "You guys might want to check your company's trending status. Hashtag Dirty Laundry Gate is about to hit the internet." I wasn't bluffing. Turns out, when you send a few screenshots to a friend who blogs about workplace culture, things move fast. The HR guy looked like his soul left his body. I nodded politely and headed toward the door, security awkwardly trailing behind me. As I stepped out into the hallway, applause broke out, actual applause. A few people clapped slowly at first, then more joined in. Whether it was respect or fear, I didn't care. I turned, gave a theatrical bow, and said, "Remember, folks, don't mix business with pleasure unless you're prepared for spin cycle consequences." Then I left, dragging the now empty bag behind me like a victory flag. The walk to the parking lot felt euphoric, like a villain origin montage with background music by Revenge-era Taylor Swift. My heart pounded, adrenaline surged, and for once, I didn't feel like the guy left holding the emotional mop. I tossed the bag into my truck, climbed in, and just sat there laughing. That kind of uncontrollable, cathartic laughter that comes when your life is simultaneously collapsing and peaking. My phone buzzed. 8 missed calls from Clara, 2 from unknown, and 1 from Leon, my lawyer friend, who had apparently seen the live footage already. His voicemail was just him laughing for 30 straight seconds before saying, "You're trending, bro. Call me before CNN does." I drove home, every red light feeling like a slow-motion victory lap. People always say revenge doesn't satisfy you. Those people never dumped a bag of dirty secrets in a boardroom. I pulled into the driveway, killed the engine, and leaned back. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked different, lighter, freer, maybe a little insane, but in that might start a podcast about healing kind of way. Back inside, Cooper met me at the door, tail wagging like I'd just won Best in Show. "Mission accomplished," I told him, scratching his ears. He barked once, which I took as approval. I poured myself a drink, not whiskey this time, but coffee. Strong, black, and full of aftertaste. My phone kept buzzing with notifications, tweets, DMs, even an old college buddy texting. "Bro, are you the laundry guy?" I didn't reply. I just sipped my coffee and watched the morning light crawl through the blinds. For the first time in months, my house felt mine again. Then came the knock on the door. I didn't even flinch. It was Clara, of course, still in her conference outfit, mascara streaked, phone in hand. "You humiliated me," she snapped the moment I opened the door. "Correction," I said, setting my mug down. "You humiliated yourself. I just provided the PowerPoint." She glared at me, chest heaving. "Do you realize what you've done? I could lose my job, my reputation. You mean the one you built on lies?" I interrupted. "Don't worry. I think the rebranding opportunities are endless. Maybe start a podcast, How to Cheat with Confidence." She slapped me. Not hard, just enough to say, "I'm out of arguments." I laughed, not mockingly, but like someone who'd finally stopped playing defense. "You done?" I asked calmly. She looked at me, eyes glassy with anger and disbelief. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said, shrugging, "but at least I'm honest about it." She stormed off to her car, tires screeching like punctuation to our marriage obituary. I watched her go, feeling nothing. No regret, no rage. Just that eerie calm that comes when you realize you've already hit rock bottom and started redecorating. The internet, meanwhile, was on fire. Bright Vista's official page was flooded with comments like "transparency goals" and "when HR meets HBO." A clip from the meeting had hit social media, me dragging the bag, Clara's shocked face, the avalanche of laundry, and the world had opinions. Some called me petty, others called me a hero. I called it Tuesday. By evening, my phone had buzzed so much it felt like a massage chair. Leon texted, "Dude, investors are panicking. Bright Vista's stock dropped 4%. You're a market event." I couldn't stop laughing. I'd always dreamed of impacting the economy, just didn't think it'd happen via lingerie and revenge. That night, As the world kept talking, I sat in the quiet of my living room, sipping a beer and scratching Cooper's ears. The dishwasher hummed, the clock ticked, and my life, messy, loud, broken, suddenly felt weirdly peaceful. Clara's empire might have been collapsing, but mine? Mine was just starting to rebuild, one sarcastic sip at a time. Somewhere, deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Oh no, this was just intermission. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when a man stops begging to be respected and starts acting like he already deserves it, the world has to adjust its volume. And I wasn't planning to go quiet anytime soon. There's a very particular kind of silence that hits after you go viral for the wrong reasons. It's the sound of your phone vibrating every 10 seconds while you stare at the ceiling wondering whether you're trending because people think you're a hero or because they think you need therapy. Spoiler, it's both. I woke up to my name plastered across social media like a new Netflix documentary title, Laundry Guy, the husband who snapped, folded, and conquered. My DMs were split evenly between divorce lawyers offering discounts and random strangers calling me king. Even my mom texted, "Heard about the laundry thing. Don't do anything dumb, but also proud of you." By 9 a.m., Clara had called 14 times. By call 15, I blocked her. The dopamine of silence? Delicious. Instead, I rang my friend Leon Hart, the one man I knew who could turn a federal investigation into a punchline. Leon's a lawyer, technically. His moral compass spins like a roulette wheel, but somehow he always lands on make it legal, make it funny. He picked up mid-laughter. "Brooks, I swear to God, you've outdone yourself. I thought the time you tried to fake a golf injury to skip Christmas dinner was peak performance. But this is art. You broke the internet. Am I getting sued?" I asked, because someone had to ask the grown-up question. "Not yet," he said. "But HR probably wants to hold hands with you and Clara over a table of non-disclosure agreements. I recommend you start every sentence with allegedly. It makes you sound sophisticated." I sighed. "Leon, I think I might have destroyed her career." "Destroyed?" he said, scoffing. "Buddy, you laundered it. And if you're worried about optics, don't. America loves a man who loses it with purpose." That line stuck with me. Loses it with purpose. It sounded like a campaign slogan for midlife crises. Sure enough, 2 hours later, my phone lit up with an unknown number. HR from Bright Vista Media. Her voice had that mix of politeness and panic that only corporate professionals can pull off. "Mr. Walker," she began, "this is Sandra from Human Resources. We'd like to schedule a conversation regarding yesterday's incident." "Incident?" I said, feigning innocence. "You mean the one where I accidentally improved company morale?" She didn't laugh. "It's important we address the matter professionally." "Sure," I said. "But just to clarify, are we talking about me or my wife's professional relationship with her assistant?" Dead silence. I swear I could hear her soul buffering. "I'll send you a calendar invite," she finally said. "Looking forward to it," I replied. "Should I bring detergent? Or are we done cleaning things up?" Click. She hung up. Corporate humor, tragically underrated. After that, I decided to do what any responsible adult would do in a scandal: get brunch. I hit up a diner downtown, the kind where waitresses call you hun and coffee refills flow like forgiveness. I scrolled through the comments section under a trending clip of me dragging that laundry bag across the Bright Vista conference room. The top comment: "Bro didn't air her laundry, he held a TED Talk." The second: "Justice smells like Downey." I laughed so hard the waitress asked if I was okay. "Better than I've been in years," I said. By the time I got home, Clara's lawyer had emailed me a cease and desist letter written with enough passive-aggressive energy to power a small city. It started with, "Dear Mr. Walker, your recent actions have caused emotional distress and reputational harm," and ended with a request for me to publicly retract defamatory insinuations. I forwarded it to Leon with the subject line, "Fan mail." He called within minutes, wheezing from laughter. "Brooks, you're living in a sitcom. Don't sign anything yet. Give it 24 hours. She's spiraling, and Bright Vista's board is having an aneurysm trying to decide whether to fire her or promote her for authenticity." I blinked. "Promote her? You'd be amazed what crisis management experience does for a resume these days," Leon said. "Meanwhile, your stock as the wronged husband is through the roof. I'd strike while the iron's hot. Write a memoir, do a podcast, call it Press Cycle, How I Wash the Truth." Leon: Okay, he said. but at least make a statement. Something classy. Like, no comment, but my laundry's clean. It was evil. It was perfect. I posted exactly that on X, formerly Twitter, with a picture of my coffee mug next to folded towels. Within an hour, 50,000 likes. A journalist even emailed me asking if I'd comment for an article titled Revenge, Romance, and Rebranding, when husbands go viral. I politely declined because, frankly, my popcorn wasn't ready. Meanwhile, the fallout at Bright Vista was biblical. According to LinkedIn gossip, yes, that's a thing. Jasper had been placed on leave, Clara's department was under review, and HR had commenced an internal investigation. Translation, everyone was freaking out. The company's stock dropped 3% overnight, which made Leon text me. Congratulations, you're officially an economic factor. I should have felt bad, maybe, but honestly, I felt liberated. For years, I'd been the invisible man in my own marriage, chauffeur, handyman, emotional Wi-Fi provider. And now, I was laundry guy, internet legend, domestic avenger, patron saint of cheated on spouses everywhere. People were sending me virtual beers. A merch store had already popped up selling t-shirts that said, "Fold, don't flinch." Still, I knew it couldn't all be memes and victory laps. So I called Leon again. "What's the move, legally?" I asked. "Lay low," he said. "But also, maybe change the locks." I already did. Good. And freeze the joint accounts. Done. Nice. Then feed her fancy skincare products to your dog. Already handled that too. There was a pause. "Brooks," he said solemnly, "I have never been prouder." The next morning, I woke up to find a news van parked outside my house. Local station. I peeked through the blinds like a man in witness protection. The reporter was doing a live segment titled Laundry Day Scandal Rocks Bright Vista Media. My neighbor, Carol, was in the background watering her plants, trying to look disinterested while obviously eavesdropping. I texted Leon, "Now what?" He replied, "Smile. You're already trending. Might as well look good doing it." So I threw on a robe, grabbed my coffee, and walked outside like I'd just won the lottery. The reporter turned, startled, and said, "Mr. Walker, care to comment?" I took a sip of coffee, stared straight into the camera, and said, "I just hope everyone learns to separate their colors and tell the truth." Then I winked and walked back inside. Twitter exploded again. That's the kind of peace that only comes when you've set something on fire and watched it burn clean. Not destruction, clarity. For 15 years, I'd been folding her laundry, fixing her mistakes, smoothing her chaos. Now, for the first time, the mess was hers alone to handle. As the credits rolled on the day, I texted Leon one final thing. "You think revenge makes you feel better. Turns out, it just makes you feel real." He replied instantly. And sometimes, real is better than married. He wasn't wrong. There are bad days. And then there's the day you find out your marriage, your reputation, and your household group chat have all made it to trending news under a hashtag. Hashtag Dirty Laundry Gate had officially become the internet's new favorite soap opera. The memes were relentless. Someone photoshopped me onto a Tide commercial with the caption, "Brooks Walker, removing stains since 2025. Another one had Clara's face over a detergent bottle that said new formula, now with extra lies. I should have been embarrassed, but instead, I was sipping my morning coffee like a man whose karma subscription finally paid off. The internet was having the time of its life, but Bright Vista Media? Not so much. Their official page turned into a battlefield overnight. PR statements were flying, employees were taking breaks for mental health, and Jasper had deleted everything. Instagram, LinkedIn, probably his dignity too. According to the Gossip Mill and Leon, my ever-reliable lawyer/gossip correspondent, Bright Vista investors had demanded a comprehensive ethics review. Translation, they were scrubbing the company cleaner than my wife's conscience was ever going to be. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when my doorbell rang. Through the peepholes stood Clara, mascara smudged, hair in disarray, and eyes redder than a stoplight after a tequila binge. She looked like karma had just mugged her in the parking lot. I opened the door slowly, mostly because I wanted to savor this moment. "You look great," I said deadpan. Corporate chic with a hint of chaos. She pushed past me, waving her phone. "You humiliated me, Brooks," she shouted, voice shaking. "You humiliated us." "Correction," I said, leaning against the counter. You humiliated yourself. I just provided the PowerPoint. Her jaw dropped. Do you think this is funny? I think it's tragic, I said, taking a sip of coffee. Tragic that you thought you could cheat on me with a guy who probably says leg day during sex. That one hit. She flinched. You've destroyed my career. Clara, I said calmly. You destroyed your own career the moment you started treating the office like an after-hours motel. I just gave your investors the honesty your PR campaigns promised. She started crying, the loud, theatrical kind where every sob sounds like an unpaid invoice. Once upon a time, that would have gutted me. Today, I just watched. You're cruel, she said. Cruel? I raised an eyebrow. Cruel is making your husband feel like a roommate while you're sexting your secretary. Cruel is lying to your kids about late meetings while you're at Jasper's apartment pretending to brainstorm. I'm not cruel, Clara. I'm creative. She threw her hands up. So that's it. You're just done? You're not even going to try to fix this. Oh, I'll fix it, I said, smiling. Just not with you. That was when she broke. She sat down on the couch, shoulders shaking, and whispered, Everyone hates me. I shrugged. Not everyone. I'm sure Jasper's still got a soft spot for you. Well, metaphorically. Maybe not professionally anymore. That earned me a glare that could have melted steel. She stood up, wiped her eyes, and pointed at me. You think you've won, don't you? You think people are laughing with you? They're laughing at you, Brooks. You're a joke. I set my coffee down and walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. Maybe. But at least I'm a joke with good timing. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. I let out a deep breath, looked at Cooper, and said, You think I went too far? He tilted his head like he was debating it. Yeah, I sighed. Me too. But damn if it didn't feel good. By noon, my phone was a circus. Bright Vista's HR director left me a voicemail that sounded like a hostage reading a script. Mr. Walker, we'd like to discuss a resolution to this situation. Translation, please stop making us trend. I deleted it. Then Leon called, laughing so hard I could barely understand him. Brooks, buddy, you are officially a folk hero. Do you realize people are using your face on stickers? Stickers? Yeah, man. Etsy shops are cashing in. There's one that says, Fold the drama, and another with you holding a laundry bag like Thor's hammer. You're a phenomenon. I didn't sign up to be a meme, Leon. Too late, he said between laughs. You're public domain now. Later that day, I took Cooper for a walk. People recognized me. Not from PDA meetings or the neighborhood BBQs. No, from the internet. One woman driving by slowed down, rolled down her window, and yelled, We stand a petty king, before speeding off. Another guy at the park fist bumped me and said, Legend. I didn't even know his name. I was officially that guy, poster boy for marital revenge with a side of sarcasm. But here's the thing. Fame, even the ridiculous kind, gets heavy fast. By the third day, the reporters stopped camping outside, the hashtags started fading, and the comments turned philosophical. Did he go too far? Was it justified? What about the children? I read them all. And somewhere between the memes and the moral debates, I realized something. No matter how much you win, it doesn't erase the ache. Betrayal leaves residue, like that one coffee mug that never gets quite clean no matter how many times you scrub it. I sat alone that night, nursing a beer and scrolling through old photos of Clara and the kids. 15 years of life. Vacations, birthdays, stupid Halloween costumes. I wasn't angry anymore, just tired. That's the part people never show you in movies. The quiet after revenge. The silence where the adrenaline fades and you're left wondering what comes next. Then, as if the universe had impeccable comedic timing, Clara called again. I answered this time, just to see what she'd say. Her voice was smaller, softer. They suspended me, she said. Bright Vista. Yes, she sniffed. They're conducting a review. The board says I violated ethical standards. Jasper's gone. HR's documenting everything. My lawyer says I might lose my shares. I didn't say anything. I just listened. I don't have anyone else to talk to, she said quietly. Everyone's turned against me. I sighed. You should have thought about that before you turned against me. Silence. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, I made a mistake. Yeah, I said. You did. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered those texts. Those heart emojis. The smugness in Jasper's tone. And suddenly, the pity evaporated. Good luck, Clara, I said, and hung up. I poured myself another beer, sat on the porch, and watched the sunset paint the sky gold and orange. Cooper rested at my feet, tail wagging lazily. My neighbor Carol walked by, pretending not to stare but clearly dying to ask about the scandal. "Evening, Brooks," she said sweetly. "Evening," I replied. "You holding up okay?" "Better than my marriage," I said. She snorted, then blushed. "Well, good for you. She never deserved you anyway." "Thanks," I said, raising my bottle. "To clean breaks and clean clothes." She laughed, waved, and walked on. I leaned back, smiling at the absurdity of it all. My life had turned into a meme. My wife was on corporate probation, and yet, for the first time in years, I felt lighter, free even. Revenge hadn't fixed everything, but it had flipped the power dynamic. And once you taste that freedom, you don't go back. That night, Leon texted again. "So what's next, laundry legend?" I stared at the message for a while before replying. "I don't know. Maybe something small. Quiet. Like peace." He replied instantly. "Boring. You should open a laundromat. Call it Fresh Start." I chuckled, set my phone down, and took one last sip of beer. The world had finally stopped spinning so fast. I'd been the fool, the punchline, and now, weirdly enough, the hero of my own story. Maybe revenge wasn't supposed to heal you. It just cleared enough space for healing to start. And as I drifted off to sleep that night, I thought, maybe tomorrow, I'll actually start doing the laundry again. This time for me. By Monday morning, I was officially a celebrity in my neighborhood. Which, for the record, sounds cool until you realize it mostly means people you barely know pretend to take out their trash whenever you step outside just to get the latest update. Mrs. Patterson, my 80-year-old neighbor, had practically turned her porch into a CNN newsroom. Every time I walked past, she'd wave her phone and say, "They showed you on the morning segment again, Brooks. You looked so calm while destroying her. My daughter says you're iconic." Iconic. I guess that's one way to describe a man who weaponized laundry. The internet had cooled down slightly by then, but the damage was permanent. Bright Vista Media had gone from a leader in creative integrity to that company with the cheating scandal and the yoga pants husband. They tried to spin it, of course, released a vague statement about internal restructuring and employee accountability. Translation: they were frantically trying to clean a stain with hand sanitizer. I should have been done by now, coasting on my viral fame, maybe signing a book deal titled Folded, Not Broken. But Clara wasn't finished. She showed up again. This time, not in tears, in armor. Hair perfectly straightened, tailored blazer, the kind of heels that announce, "I'm here to reclaim my dignity." Except this wasn't a rom-com. I didn't have a boom box or a change of heart waiting by the door. I was in gym shorts, eating cold pizza straight from the box. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. She walked in without asking. "We need to talk," she said flatly. I sighed, took another bite, and gestured toward the couch. "Careful, that's the seat of betrayal." She ignored me, sat down, and crossed her legs like we were in a deposition. "My PR team says I should release a joint statement." I blinked. "Eh, what?" "A joint statement," she repeated. "Something neutral that says we're working through personal matters privately. It'll help restore my brand and—" I started laughing. Not a chuckle, not a smirk. Full, shoulders shaking, pizza almost falling out of my mouth laughter. She stared at me like I'd lost it. Maybe I had, but at least I was enjoying it. "You want me," I said, catching my breath, "to help you restore your brand? Clara, your brand cheated on me with its assistant. It's not a rebrand, it's a recall." Her eyes hardened. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" "I'm not enjoying it," I said, still smirking. "I'm savoring it. Like a fine wine that's aged in betrayal and poor decision-making." She exhaled sharply. "You think you've won, but this affects you too. We still share assets, Brooks. The house, the accounts, the company stock." "Correction," I said, raising a finger. "We shared assets. I froze those accounts the day you decided your marriage vows were optional. As for the house, well, congratulations. You get the guest room. For visiting rights only." Her jaw clenched. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," I said calmly, setting the pizza down and leaning forward. "But lucky for you, I'm not completely heartless. Which is why I've prepared a counteroffer." Her brows furrowed. "Eh, what?" "A counteroffer," I repeated, sliding a neatly printed document from under a pile of mail on the table. "Leon helped me draft it. He called it equal parts genius and deranged, which I took as high praise. Clara took the paper, scanning the title, Post-Affair Partnership Agreement. She looked up at me like I'd lost my mind. You're kidding. Not even a little, I said. It's simple. 2 options. I sat back, crossing my arms like a CEO in an HR video. Option 1. You publicly admit your little mistake, resign from Bright Vista, and move somewhere quiet where no one recognizes you. Maybe Idaho. Great potatoes, 0 paparazzi. She rolled her eyes. And option 2. Option 2. I said, grinning, you stay married to me, but under new management. She laughed bitterly. New management? Yup, I said, tapping the paper. You handle every single household duty. Laundry, cooking, school runs, taxes, grocery shopping, pet care, you name it. Meanwhile, I pursue my dream of opening a coffee shop downtown. You remember that dream, right? The one you called a waste of potential right before you bought a Peloton you used twice. She scoffed. You're insane. Possibly, I said. But you cheated on me. So clearly we're both making bold choices. She stood, pacing. You think I'm going to give up my career to play housewife? No, I said. I think you're going to do whatever costs you less. And right now, a divorce costs half your company's shares, half your assets, and half your public image, which, let's face it, is already hanging by a thread. Her nostrils flared. You wouldn't. I grinned. Clara, I once carried your dirty underwear into a board meeting. Do you really want to test how far I'll go? That shut her up for a minute. She stared at the paper again, weighing humiliation against financial ruin. The silence stretched. Cooper wandered in, dropped his toy at her feet, and gave her a look like even he was judging her. Fine, she muttered finally. Fine, I'll do it. I raised an eyebrow. Option 2. Yes, she snapped. But this doesn't mean you've won. It means I'm being strategic. Of course, I said, smiling. That's what all defeated CEOs say before stepping down from emotional leadership. She glared. You're impossible. I'm consistent, I said, standing up. And just to clarify, this arrangement starts immediately. Breakfast at 7. Dishes done before 9. Kids picked up by 3. And please, for the love of sanity, don't burn the toast like you burned our marriage. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I think that's when she realized the tables had officially turned. She grabbed her purse and stormed out. The sound of her car peeling out of the driveway was music to my ears. I turned to Cooper. Well, buddy, I said, scratching behind his ears. Looks like we're getting home-cooked meals again. Possibly inedible, but home-cooked. He wagged his tail in approval. That night, Leon called. Tell me you didn't actually make her sign that thing. She didn't sign it, I said. Yet. But she agreed verbally. He cackled. You're running your marriage like a merger. That's psychotic. I love it. I call it accountability with benefits, I said. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of something. It wasn't coffee. It wasn't food. It was chaos. I walked into the kitchen to find Clara wearing one of my old t-shirts, hair tied up, flipping what I think was supposed to be a pancake. Smoke billowed from the stove like a fog machine at a middle school dance. What are you doing? I asked. Making breakfast, she said through gritted teeth. Happy now. I looked at the pan, then at her. Ecstatic. Truly. The smoke alarms just applause. She glared, but the corner of her mouth twitched. Maybe she realized the absurdity of it all. Maybe she was just too tired to fight. Either way, we ate. Burnt pancakes, awkward silence, and all. The kids shuffled in halfway through, confused but curious. Mom's cooking? Sophie asked, wide-eyed. Voluntarily. Yeah, I said, sipping my coffee. It's part of a new program called Consequences 101. Clara shot me a look, but I ignored it. The kids giggled. It was the first breakfast in years that felt like something other than tension and pretense. As she cleaned up, muttering under her breath about ridiculous deals, I leaned against the counter, watching her. For the first time, she wasn't in control, and surprisingly, that didn't make her weaker. It made her real, flawed, human. That night, I got an email from her PR team. Please confirm that Mrs. Walker has fulfilled the household duties as per your verbal agreement. I laughed so hard I nearly fell off the couch. I replied, progress pending. Pancake quality below expectations. Leon texted later, you're officially the pettiest genius alive. Maybe he was right. But here's the thing. After years of being ignored, dismissed, and quietly disrespected, I'd finally found my voice. And if that voice happened to narrate like a sitcom and sound slightly unhinged, so be it. The next morning, Clara was up early, making eggs this time. They were edible. She didn't smile, but she didn't scowl either. Small progress. So, I said casually, when's your next Bright Vista board meeting? She shot me a death glare. They postponed it. Indefinitely. Ah, I said, sipping my coffee. Guess they're still cleaning up the mess. She didn't respond. But when she sat down, I noticed something new in her eyes. Not love. Not regret. Something else. Respect, maybe. Or the early stages of realizing that actions have consequences. Enjoy your coffee, she muttered. Oh, I am, I said with a grin. For the first time in years. And I meant it. They say karma comes for everyone, but nobody mentions it sometimes arrives wearing an apron and holding a burnt spatula. 3 weeks into our little post-affair partnership agreement, and Clara had gone from CEO powerhouse to suburban mom, doing school runs and laundry like she was being punished by divine irony. Every morning I'd sit at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee from my #LaundryLegend mug, while watching her fight with the toaster like it owed her money. It was therapeutic. The same woman who used to give keynote speeches about efficiency couldn't even manage to make breakfast without setting off the smoke alarm. Eli's lunchbox. I'd ask casually. She'd freeze, mid-scramble, and mutter something about getting to it. Sophie, our 15-year-old, would whisper, "Mom, you're gonna burn it again," and I'd choke back a laugh so hard it probably added 5 years to my life. Watching her juggle chaos she used to delegate was pure cinematic gold. The irony wasn't lost on her either. One morning, while she was folding laundry, she looked up and said, "Do you enjoy watching me struggle?" I smiled. "Oh, tremendously. It's like a live-action redemption arc." To her credit, she didn't crumble. Clara was too proud for that. She threw herself into her new role with the same ruthless determination she once used to destroy small competitors. She started reading mommy blogs, making grocery lists, even downloading budget apps. The kids were confused but amused. "Is Mom okay?" Eli asked one night. "She keeps saying organic and crying over detergent commercials." "Yeah," I said. "She's just detoxing from corporate poison. It's healthy." Meanwhile, my coffee shop dream, the one she'd mocked for years, was finally happening. Leon helped me with the legal side, because apparently opening a cafe involves more paperwork than marriage. I called it Grounds for Divorce. Yes, really. It started as a joke, but the name stuck. People loved the irony. The sign outside read, "Serving closure daily, extra shot optional." I hired a few local baristas, added a corner bookshelf labeled Emotional Support Literature, and played nothing but chill jazz and breakup ballads. Within a month, business was booming. One morning, a woman ordered a latte and said, "Are you the Brooks Walker?" I nodded. She grinned. "You're my hero. I sent my ex a mug from your merch line." Yeah, there was merch now, mugs, shirts, even tote bags that said "Stay caffeinated, stay petty." Leon was right. America loves a man who loses it with purpose. And the best part? Bright Vista employees started showing up. Every time one walked in, I could tell by the look, a mix of curiosity, pity, and respect. They always tipped extra. One even whispered, "We still talk about the boardroom incident like it's folklore." Life was absurdly poetic. While Clara was scrubbing toilets, I was running a profitable business out of poetic revenge. One afternoon, I came home early to find her at the sink, sleeves rolled up, humming. Actually humming. "Wow," I said, leaning against the doorway. "Didn't think I'd live to see the day you find inner peace next to a bottle of bleach." She didn't look up. "Don't flatter yourself. I'm just doing what I said I would." I grinned. "You mean obeying the terms of your self-inflicted community service?" She rolled her eyes. "You're insufferable." "True," I said, "but at least I'm consistent." The truth was, and I'll never admit this out loud, part of me respected her resilience. She could have left, could have taken the legal nuke route, but instead she stayed and swallowed her pride. Maybe she thought she could earn redemption. Maybe she just didn't want to lose everything. Either way, she was learning humility the hard way, and watching it unfold was better than therapy. The kids began warming to her again. Sophie started letting her braid her hair in the mornings. Eli bragged to his friends that Mom's finally normal. Even Cooper, our dog, stopped growling when she entered the room. Progress. And me? I found myself less angry every day. Still sarcastic, sure, but not burning inside. One night, as we sat in the living room after dinner, her folding laundry, me reviewing cafe invoices, she broke the silence. You really named your shop Grounds for Divorce? Yup. She chuckled. That's actually clever. I know, I said. You should visit sometime. They've got a loyalty program. Every 10 coffees, you earn back 1 ounce of dignity. She laughed, genuinely. Not the fake, PR laugh she used in meetings. It was awkward but real, like a window finally cracking open after years of suffocating air. For a moment, the tension eased. I leaned back, watching her fold one of my shirts, the same woman who used to roll her eyes when I left one sock out of place. You know, I said quietly, you're not terrible at this. She smirked. At folding your mess? At starting over, I said. She didn't reply, just kept folding, slower this time. I didn't push it. Sometimes silence says enough. As I got up to leave, she said softly, I might take you up on that coffee shop visit. I turned, grinning. You should. I'll even give you the employee discount, 0%. Revenge doesn't pay, but sarcasm's free. She rolled her eyes, but there was a faint smile there. A truce, maybe. Or at least the beginning of one. And for the first time since the day I opened that cursed email, I realized something. Maybe karma wasn't here to punish her anymore. Maybe it was here to remind me that life, when flipped upside down, can still brew something worth tasting. You know that eerie calm after a hurricane, when you walk outside expecting chaos but instead find everything weirdly shiny and peaceful. That's what life felt like a year later. The internet had moved on to new scandals. Politicians, influencers, billionaires pretending to be humble. Laundry Guy was now a piece of meme history, buried beneath the sands of algorithmic forgetfulness. My cafe, Grounds for Divorce, was thriving. The neighborhood moms came for gossip, the college kids came for Wi-Fi, and the recently dumped came for emotional CPR. We even had a drink called the Espresso, bitterness guaranteed, extra strong, no refills. Clara and I had stabilized. Civil, polite. We'd split the assets officially, drawn clean boundaries, and somehow figured out how to co-parent without wanting to reenact the Trojan War. The kids were good, business was booming, and for the first time in years, peace didn't feel like a punchline. Until Jasper Lee, the human protein shake himself, walked into my cafe looking like a man who'd been surviving on regret and gas station granola bars. I was wiping down the counter when the doorbell jingled, and there he was, hoodie, sunken eyes, the aura of a motivational poster gone wrong. Brooks, he said quietly. Long time. I stared at him for a full 10 seconds, trying to decide if I was hallucinating or just too caffeinated. Jasper, I said finally. You're either brave or lost. He gave a weak smile. Both. Then, God help me. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. I'm looking for work. I nearly choked. Work? Here? At my cafe? He nodded. I saw online you were hiring. I've been blacklisted since, well, you know. Oh, I know, I said, wiping the counter again just so I didn't throw the rag at him. You mean since you decided to have an affair with your boss/my wife in front of several NDAs worth of witnesses? He winced. I deserve that. You deserve a lot more than that, I muttered. He shuffled awkwardly. Look, I just need a chance to start over. I leaned on the counter, pretending to think. Part of me wanted to kick him out so hard he'd bounce into next week. But another, darker part, the petty part, started to grin. Sure, I said finally. You can work here. His eyes lit up. Really? Yeah. You any good with espresso machines? He nodded enthusiastically. Absolutely. I can. Perfect, I interrupted. You'll be cleaning them. The look on his face was pure poetry. Cleaning? Yup, I said cheerfully. Every nozzle, every pipe, every drip tray. Think of it as professional redemption. He hesitated, then nodded. Okay, I'll do it. Attaboy, I said, tossing him an apron. Welcome to Grounds for Divorce, where karma clocks in at 9 sharp. Watching Jasper scrub the espresso machine that day was the single most satisfying visual experience of my adult life. He worked quietly, shoulders hunched, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Customers whispered. One guy nudged his friend and said, Isn't that the dude from that scandal? I shrugged. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said innocently, then added, Some just have to earn it one filter basket at a time. By noon, Jasper was sweating like he'd just fought a caffeine demon. Every time I walked past, I'd say something motivational like, "Make sure you get under the steam wand, champ," or "Don't worry, character builds faster than foam." He didn't argue. He just nodded and kept cleaning. Around 3, Clara showed up. She'd been stopping by sometimes, quietly, to grab coffee and make small talk that didn't end in explosions. The moment she stepped inside, she froze. Her eyes landed on Jasper, hunched over the counter, scrubbing like a man trying to erase history. "Is that?" she started. "Yup," I said, stirring my coffee. "Why on earth would you?" "Because I'm a firm believer in recycling," I said with a straight face. She stared at me, then started laughing. Honest, shocked laughter that turned heads. Jasper, poor guy, looked up, met her eyes, and nearly dropped the cleaning rag. "Hi, Clara," he muttered. She shook her head, still laughing. "Oh my God, this is insane." "Welcome to my world," I said. "Population, poetic justice." She walked up to the counter. "You really hired him?" "Of course. He needed a job, and I needed someone who knows how to clean up messes they caused." Her laughter softened into something else, something like respect. "You're unbelievable." "Thank you," I said. "I try." She ordered her usual, black coffee, no sugar, and sat by the window. For a brief, surreal moment, all three of us occupied the same space. The betrayed, the betrayer, and the formerly betraying wife. It should have been awkward. It should have been explosive. But it was just weirdly calm. When Jasper finished his shift, he handed me the apron. "Thanks," he said quietly, "for letting me work here." "Don't thank me," I said. "Thank Karma. She's the one doing all the hiring these days." He nodded, then left, shoulders hunched like a man who finally understood what rock bottom really meant. Clara watched him go, then turned to me. "You're something else, Brooks." "Yeah," I said, sipping my coffee. "Clean." She smiled faintly. "You know, if this were a movie, that would have been the scene where everyone cries and hugs." "Yeah," I said, "but this is real life. We just serve coffee and consequences." She laughed again, softer this time. And for the first time in forever, I realized something. Revenge had finally stopped tasting bitter. It was just balanced, like a good brew. It's funny how life moves on when you stop forcing it to make sense. A year and a half after the Great Laundry Apocalypse, my name had finally faded from the public gossip cycle. Laundry Guy became a meme-tier legend mentioned occasionally by bored podcasters and nostalgic Redditors. But mostly, I was just Brooks again. The guy who made a mean cappuccino and could fix an espresso grinder blindfolded. My cafe, Grounds for Divorce, was still thriving, still hilarious, and still serving fresh karma by the cup. I'd made peace with the fact that the internet will forever remember me as the man who turned heartbreak into a public service announcement. But unlike most people who go viral, I didn't crash afterward. I built something. And weirdly enough, I was proud. Clara and I had settled into a strange but functional rhythm. Civil, co-parenting like pros. There were no romantic sparks, no candlelit reconciliations, but there was peace. And, for us, that was revolutionary. The kids were older now, old enough to understand that marriage isn't always a fairy tale, but it doesn't have to turn into a horror story either. Sophie was applying for art school. Eli had joined his middle school robotics club, and both were thriving. Cooper the dog had become the cafe mascot. Customers loved him, and he loved free pastries, so everyone won. The morning Clara came by again, it was raining, soft, quiet rain that made the world smell clean and new. She walked in wearing a beige coat, no makeup, hair loose, holding 2 coffees instead of 1. I didn't need to look twice to know one was for me. "You really made something out of all that chaos," she said, setting the cup in front of me. Her tone wasn't defensive anymore, just calm, maybe even a little proud. I smirked. "Told you I'd make something of myself. You just didn't think it'd come with latte art." She smiled faintly, pulling up a chair. "No, I didn't. But I'm glad you did." The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was the kind of silence that happens when 2 people finally stop competing to be right and start accepting what actually happened. "So," I said, taking a sip of the coffee, "how's life after Bright Vista?" She laughed softly, shaking her head. "Let's just say corporate exile humbles you." I started consulting. Small businesses, startups. Nothing fancy, but it's honest. "Consulting, huh?" I said, nodding. "Helping people avoid self-destruction. You're kind of an expert." She rolled her eyes, smiling. You're never going to let that go, are you? Nope, I said. Some memories deserve to be laminated. She took a sip of her coffee and leaned back. You seem lighter, Brooks. Happier. I am, I said honestly. You know what I realized? Revenge doesn't heal you, but it clears the junk off the table so you can finally see what you've been ignoring. Turns out, I didn't need to fix you. I just needed to stop apologizing for being me. She nodded slowly, looking around the cafe, the plants, the shelves, the wall art made of reclaimed laundry clips. Yeah, I leaned into the theme. You built something beautiful, she said quietly. I shrugged. I built something honest. Beautiful came later. We sat there for a while, listening to the rain against the windows. For once, there wasn't any anger, just mutual understanding. I could tell she was trying to say something deeper, maybe even an apology dressed up as conversation, but I didn't need it anymore. I'd already forgiven her, not because she deserved it, but because I didn't want to carry it. You ever regret it? She asked suddenly. All of it. I thought about it. The heartbreak, the chaos, the viral fame, the humiliation, the weird sense of freedom that came after. No, I said finally. Not anymore. If it hadn't happened, I'd still be living on autopilot, pretending everything's fine. Sometimes things have to explode before you can breathe again. She nodded, eyes glassy but steady. You always had a way with words. Yeah, I said, smirking. Turns out people just needed me to say them over coffee. She laughed, genuinely this time. The sound was familiar, nostalgic, but not painful anymore. Just part of the past. A group of customers came in then, regulars. A couple of them waved, and one pointed to Cooper, who was asleep near the counter. Hey, laundry guy, someone called jokingly. You ever gonna make merch for dog owners? I rolled my eyes. Only if it says, fetch your own closure, I said, and the room burst into laughter. Clara laughed too. Not bitterly, not awkwardly, just naturally, like she'd finally stopped fighting the joke. After the rush settled, I found her by the window again, watching the rain. She was smiling at the sight of the customers, the chatter, the life of the cafe. You turned pain into comedy, she said softly. Into art. Into caffeine, I corrected. Comedy's just a side effect. Her expression softened. You really did heal, didn't you? Mostly, I said. Still have days where I think about it all, but they don't hurt anymore. It's like an old scar. You remember how you got it, but it doesn't sting when you touch it. She was quiet for a while, then said, You know, I'm proud of you, Brooks. I smiled. That means more than you think. And it did. Not because I needed her approval, but because it finally came from a place that wasn't manipulation or guilt. It was just truth, unfiltered, unpolished, human. When she stood to leave, she hesitated. Do you think we'll ever be friends? I considered it. Maybe, I said. One day. But for now, we're something better. We're done being enemies. She nodded, tears forming but not falling. Goodbye, Brooks. Goodbye, Clara. She left, and for the first time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like both of us had finally stepped out of the wreckage and started walking in different directions toward peace. The rest of the day went on like any other. Orders, laughter, the sound of the espresso machine steaming away. But everything felt cleaner, calmer, like the universe had finally stopped screaming and decided to hum instead. That night, after closing, I sat outside the cafe with Cooper. The rain had stopped, and the streets glistened under the glow of the streetlights. I pulled out 2 mugs, one for me, one symbolic, and poured us both a drink. We did it, buddy, I said, scratching his ears. We aired it out, cleaned it up, and somehow came out better. He wagged his tail like he understood every word. I raised my cup toward the dark, quiet sky. To clean endings, I said, and messes worth surviving. If there's one thing I learned through all of it, the betrayal, the chaos, the viral fame, it's that revenge isn't about ruining someone else. It's about rebuilding yourself so well that their damage doesn't define you anymore. You take their betrayal, polish it into clarity, and wear it like armor. And if you can make the world laugh while doing it, even better. As the night settled around me, I finished my coffee, smiled at the empty street, and whispered to no one in particular, here's to the next chapter, clean, caffeinated, and finally at peace.